Her sister used to be her lifeline, the one spark of hope in a doomed timeline, and she would have burned the world down for her. Right up until the bitter end, rotting in that death dungeon, Sienna looked up to see Lorena flashing a wicked, triumphant smirk. That was the moment the illusion shattered. The girl, who acted like her guardian angel, actually loathed her with every fiber of her being. Lorena wanted her dead for the crime of being magicless. Sienna was just the defective stray, the useless adopted trash. Life at the estate was a freezing hell of neglect. His Excellency the Duke looked at her like she was a stain on the floor. Her brothers wished she'd just vanish. Everyone treated her like a disease. Meanwhile, Lorena was the golden child, spoiled rotten by the whole world. Only Lorena pretended to give a damn. But poor, naive Sienna didn't realize she was just a puppet in her sister's twisted game. She was nothing but a scapegoat, taking the fall for every messy sin Lorena committed. That's why the Duke threw her in the death cell. Facing the raw evil of her sister, completely hopeless, Sienna made a choice. She whipped out a vial of hidden poison and downed it in one go. But Lorena wasn't about to let her off the hook that easy. She wanted a slow, agonizing show, but stuck behind the iron bars, all she could do was scream in pure rage. Sienna shut her eyes through the pain. Finally, she was taking control, ending a miserable existence where she was completely unloved. But when her eyes snapped open, she was back at square one, reborn right before the Duke adopted her, sitting in the Kendall orphanage. Today was D-Day, the day Duke Nocte was coming to shop for new kids. Every orphan was lined up, but Kendall wasn't your average shelter for unwanted kids. This place was a factory for potential mages. Since the dawn of the Empire, humanity had been in an eternal war with magic beasts, so slinging spells was the only ticket to getting adopted by the elite. Sienna and Lorena weren't blood-related. They were both just drafts for the Nocte family roster. And the Noctes, they were basically royalty descendants of the founding heroes. But in the first life, Sienna had zero magic juice, while Lorena was a total prodigy, naturally. The contrast was brutal. Sienna became the despised baggage. After living through that nightmare once, she wasn't about to replay those mistakes. Last time, she literally tripped over her own feet, right in front of Duke Nocte, catching his eye. This time, the plan was to be invisible, ghost mode activated. While she was strategizing, the Duke made his entrance. Jet black hair, eyes like burning rubies, wearing a face of stone that was Duke Nocte Roderick. The kids stood rigid in line, hoping for a golden ticket. Sienna was the only one sweating bullets, silently begging the universe to let him walk right past her. As his heavy footsteps got louder, her heart hammered against her ribs like it was trying to break out. But then the boot stopped right in front of her. Roderick dropped to one knee, and with a voice that was shockingly gentle, he looked at her stunned face and asked, "Do you want to come home to the Nocte mansion?" She froze, totally glitching out. Roderick stayed there, kneeling, waiting for an answer. It took a nudge from the others to snap her back to reality. She managed a polite curtsy, but his vibe was completely off. It caught her off guard. Something had definitely shifted in this timeline. Still, no way was she going back to that house of horrors. But before she could say no, the room spun, her legs gave out, and she collapsed. Roderick looked genuinely panicked and reached out, but her body reacted on autopilot. She flinched away. Everything went black as she hit the floor. Through the haze, she saw his worried face. Is he actually concerned? No way. Why would a monster like him care about me? With the endless war between the Empire and the beasts, the nation was always in combat mode, making mages the ultimate resource. That's why nobles scooped up commoners with high stats. They even marry their own kids off to adoptees, just to breed stronger magic bloodlines. As the adoptive father of Sienna and Lorena, Duke Nocte was the top dog. Among the aristocracy, the supreme commander of the mage army. Flashback to when Sienna first met Lorena. In the original timeline, she was a shy, trembling mess, bowing nervously. But Lorena was pure sunshine, grabbing her hand like they were besties. "Call me Big Sis from now on. I've always wanted a little sister." That blinding, radiant smile hooked Sienna instantly. From that day on, they were inseparable. Lorena played with her daily, inviting her into her world. Unlike orphan Sienna, Lorena had parents who actually wanted her, welcoming her with open arms. The cozy family vibe made Sienna feel a warmth she'd never known. Until that one fateful night when Lorena came knocking. Clutching that spellbook like a lifeline, Lorena was dying to test out its dark magic with Sienna. The book radiated a twisted energy that made Sienna instinctively recoil. But one look at Lorena's puppy dog eyes, and she folded. She couldn't say no. Then Lorena dropped the bomb she wanted to share her mana, because Sienna was basically running on empty. Sienna froze, terrified. The only reason Duke Nocte adopted her was the assumption that she was a gifted mage. "Relax, I'm overflowing with power," Lorena insisted. "I can spare some for you." Sienna pushed back hard. Feeling like a fraud, that was lying to the Duke. "Sienna, seriously, do you actually want to go back?" To the orphanage, Lorena pulled the sister card. "I want us to stay family." Silence. Sienna didn't want to leave. Nobody had ever been this nice. to her before, so she caved. Don't worry, just a little secret between us. And just like that, they performed. The transfer ritual, that exact moment, that was the beginning of her absolute nightmare. Right up until her death, Sienna realized how stupid it was to pin her hopes on other people. Now fate was handing her a redo. She would rather rot in that orphanage and take the abuse than get tangled in Lorena's toxic web again. Snapping back to reality, she saw Rebirth calling Director Malnan away, ordering him into solitary confinement to think about what he's done. Turns out 10 minutes before she woke up, Rebirth had been analyzing an unconscious Sienna. Was she dodging him or just petrified? That's when it hit him. She was skin and bones. He looked around, it wasn't just her. Every single kid in there looked like a walking ghost. Clear-cut malnutrition. The Duchy sent massive funding to raise these magic prodigies. Yet they were starving. Rebirth knew instantly that Malnan was skimming off the top. He fired the guy on the spot. Malnan tried to clap back, whining that it was totally unfair to get the axe over one little girl. Rebirth shut him down with a voice like absolute zero. As guards dragged the trash out, Sienna woke up and locked eyes with the Duke. His face was still stone cold. Sienna panicked. Did he see her weakness? Was he regretting the adoption? She scrambled into Teacher Lisa's arms, playing the fragile victim card. She begged the teacher not to send her away. I'll be good, I promise. I'll behave. I'll barely eat anything. Just please let me stay here. Rebirth looked ready to explode with anxiety. Lisa jumped in. She's just a baby. Let me talk to her. But Sienna, still clinging to her suddenly, burst into tears. An aide whispered to Rebirth to back off for a second, the moment he agreed not to force her. The waterworks stopped instantly. Defeated, Rebirth had no choice but to walk away. Lisa held her tight, whispering, soft comforts. Feeling that genuine warmth, Sienna finally understood the difference. Lorena's kindness was just poison wrapped in a smile. The irony, she only figured it out on her deathbed. Her stolen magic, a life of humiliation. All thanks to the sister she loved more than life itself. If she had just stayed with this teacher in the first timeline, she might have actually lived. Lisa gazed at her tenderly. She was just mentally planning how to protect Sienna. When, bam, the door flew open. Both of them jumped. It was Malnan. Wasn't he arrested? The maniac had burned his savings on bail and stormed back, completely unhinged. He lunged, grabbing Sienna by her hair. You little rat, I'm not done with you. He was taking out all his rage on Sienna. Lisa tried to intervene, but he backhanded her aside. Just as Sienna started to black out, a voice cut through the chaos. Get your filthy hands off her. Before Malnan could blink, a fist connected with his jaw, dropping him cold. Sienna looked up. It was Asher, the Duke's eldest son. Weird. In her memories, he was never the type to lose his cool like this. Rebirth stepped in behind him. Watching Malnan get dragged away again, Sienna trembled. Why was her life just a magnet for pain? Was she completely helpless without the Noct family's protection? Lisa held her close. Rebirth had seen enough. This place was a war zone. He turned to Sienna, dead serious. Will you come home with us to the mansion? There was desperation in his eyes, a look she had never seen on the Grand Duke before. Was her magic potential really that off the charts? Enough for him to chase her down with adoption papers, even after she ghosted him. Back in her first life, she lived under this crushing guilt, convinced she'd somehow stolen Lorena's powers. That shame turned her into a perfectionist robot. She followed Lorena's orders like a sheep forging handwriting until her fingers cramped up just to keep her sister happy, even styling her hair through the pain. But to Asir, all that blood, sweat, and tears meant absolutely zero. Because the family didn't need a diligent maid, they needed a magical powerhouse. In that past timeline, she wasted every breath trying to please them. And her reward, a pathetic, lonely death. But this time, the script gets flipped. Staying at the orphanage was a gamble. Who's to say the new director wouldn't be another nightmare waiting to happen? But heading to Duke Nocta's mansion meant facing her sister Lorena in 6 months. Still, she had the cheat codes now. With her memories intact, she could completely dodge Lorena's backstabbing 101. After weighing the pros and cons, she made the call. Nocta Mansion it is. She dodged Rebirth's hand, clinging to Lisa for dear life. Lisa had to literally carry her into the carriage. Pinky promises were made. Lisa would visit often, and Sienna had to live her best life. Be a good kid, stay kind. The ride back was stiff. Total awkward silence. Rebirth and Asir just stared out the window like statues. You could cut the tension with a knife. Sienna considered dropping a thank you, then thought nah. The good girl act was retired. By the time they rolled up to the estate, she was out cold. Rebirth scooped her up like she was made of glass. Asir tried to intercept, reaching for her, but Dad shut that down fast. Don't you have work to do? And yeah, Asir was swamped. But walking away from Sienna felt wrong. He couldn't explain this weird protective vibe, especially for a kid he just met. Then Michael, the youngest son, spotted his dad holding the girl and rushed over, panic mode on. Is that the adoptee? Rebirth instantly shushed him. Quiet. You'll wake her. Michael turned to his brother, whispering, is she staying, like for good? got the green light, and finally relaxed. Roderick gently laid Sienna onto the mattress. Asir studied her peaceful face, then caught Michael staring just as hard. It was weird the three of them were never this focused, all eyes on the new girl. Meanwhile, Sienna's brain was hosting a nightmare. Lorena was there screaming, "Happy now, stealing what belongs to me." Chills ran down her spine. She knew Lorena was a snake now, but back then, she thought Lorena was her shield. Years of programming trained to obey. She jolted awake, heart pounding, thanking the stars it was just a dream. Her eyes focused. Wait, she knew this room. This was Moon's cradle, Lorena's old VIP suite. Flashback to life number 1. They gave her a broom closet basically, and she was thrilled. Anything beat the orphanage floors right. But Lorena just laughed in her face. She had her eye on a different spot and dragged Sienna to see it. Moon's cradle was high-end luxury. Cozy furniture, top-tier setup second only to the Duke and Asir. It even had an attached maid's room. Lorena claimed it instantly, then dropped the bomb with a smile. When you visit, you can sleep in the maid's quarters. And Roderick? He just nodded along. Sienna's excitement crashed and burned right there. That clear favoritism stung like acid. In this timeline, she needed to be in a different zip code than Lorena. The nightmare left her shaking. She couldn't stay in this room. It was a trap for drama she didn't need. Decision made, she sneaked out into the dark hallways, heading for the shabby guest room she occupied in her past life. Pitch black. She tripped, scraping her leg bad. Gritting her teeth through the sting, she finally found the door. Bare mattress, just a dust cover. Didn't care. She passed out, finally at peace. Early next morning, Deborah, the newly promoted head maid, was on Sienna duty. She was dying to see this orphan kid. Must be some kind of prodigy to score the Moon's cradle suite on day 1. She knocked. Silence. Knocked again. Nothing. She cracked the door open, empty. The little miss was gone. Staff tore apart the reception hall, checked the study ghost town. Deborah swallowed her fear and reported to Roderick. He was furious. An army of servants and they lose one kid. Deborah realized right then, this wasn't just some orphan. To the Duke, Sienna was everything. Roderick ditched his duties, deciding to hunt for her himself. The staff stood in total disbelief. Duke Nocte, personally scouring the grounds for a stray orphan. Just as Roderick's anxiety was peaking, a gut feeling pulled him in a specific direction. He spun around, zeroing in on a random room. It was that exact same magnetic pull he'd felt back at the orphanage. He'd never seen Sienna in there. But his instincts were screaming that she was close. Staring at that closed door, he didn't just think it, he knew. Sienna was in there. The room was empty, sure, but the signs of life were undeniable. Had she seriously curled up in this freezing, filthy dustbin of a room all night? His eyes landed on a dust sheet, and his heart sank for the kid. Then, the crimson stains on the sheets grabbed his attention. Was that blood? Is she hurt? Panic set in, and he immediately ordered the entire staff to tear the place apart looking for her. Once the room cleared out and only Deborah remained, the wardrobe against the wall creaked open. Deborah watched, stunned, as Sienna crawled out from the shadows. Sienna brought a finger to her lips, begging for silence. Turns out when she woke up that morning, panic hit her. She'd pulled a vanishing act on her very first day. The servants would definitely get punished by the Duke because of her. That would put a target on her back forever, just as she was about to sneak back to the cradle of the Moon. The commotion outside freaked her out, so she dove into the closet. She whispered to Deborah, "In a minute. Take me out there and tell them you found me. That way the Duke won't punish you guys." Deborah was floored. She didn't expect a kid this small to be playing 4D chess to protect the staff. She scooped Sienna up and carried her straight to the Duke. Seeing the girls safe and sound, Roderick finally let out a breath he'd been holding. He reached out, desperate to check her injuries, but she flinched and pulled away. Seeing her recoil, he froze and slowly lowered his hands. The doctor patched up Sienna's wound and even pulled out some candy to cheer her up. It triggered a memory in her past life. Even when she was sick or bleeding out, she only got meds. If Lorena gave the green light. This level of kindness. It didn't feel like she'd gone back in time. It felt like she'd landed on an alien planet. Roderick asked why she crashed in that cramped little room. Because the other room, it was too nice. I never thought it was actually meant for me. The silence that followed was deafening. Even the servants felt a pang of heartbreak for her. Sienna stole a glance at Roderick and froze. His expression was identical to that day at the orphanage, like a man barely holding back a tidal wave of pain. But even though Sienna couldn't figure out why the Duke was giving her the VIP treatment she wasn't about to ask, getting attached was dangerous. Because no matter how good they treated her now, all that love was just a loan until Lorena showed up to claim it. Asking questions would just spark hope, and she was done with hope. Sienna lowered her head and mumbled an apology, promising not to worry everyone like that again. Roderick wanted to press her, but he knew pushing too hard would sound like an accusation. He swallowed his questions. "It's not your fault. No need to apologize. Just know this. The Cradle of the Moon is your room." In her head, though, she knew she'd have to surrender that room once the real star arrived, so she was just looking for an excuse to reject it now. Then a thought hit her. If she gave up the room voluntarily, when Lorena arrived, maybe Lorena wouldn't see her as an enemy. Her silence, however, was tearing Roderick apart. Back at the orphanage, she was a crying, clingy toddler. Now she was acting like a weary adult. He figured she just needed time to adjust. Deborah was equally baffled by the new young miss, living in a palace, but sighing like she carried the weight of the world. One morning, Deborah came in with breakfast, only to find Sienna gone again. Suddenly, a little head popped out from the maid's quarters. Deborah was shook. Why was she in the helps room? Sienna just shrugged, saying she felt way more comfortable crashing there. If I stay here, they'll probably give up on me sooner. She picked up her silverware and started eating. Deborah watched, fascinated, for an orphan with zero training. She handled that cutlery with the grace of a high-born lady. But as Sienna ate, her eyes got heavy, and she literally passed out right there in the chair. Deborah gently lifted the sleepy kid, carried her to the massive bed and tucked her in. But the second Sienna's eyes closed, the nightmares came rushing back. Lorena's voice echoed in her skull like a curse. She woke up gasping. That bed, it was cursed. The moment she touched it, the horrors returned. She slid off the mattress, snuck past the sleeping maid, and crept into the adjacent servant's room. Only in the shadows did she feel safe. The trauma of her past life, the sting of being unwanted, kept haunting her. The rumor mill was already churning. This loner orphan, the Duke's adopted daughter, ignoring her status to do maid work all day. What was her deal? Did she want to be a servant or something? When Lady Lorena finally bags the Duke, will she actually have what it takes? That's the question on everyone's lips. Honestly, the girl has zero chill. On the surface, Lorena played the caring sister, but privately, she was throwing shade 247. She dropped these fake invites to parties, then immediately guilt-tripped Sienna with, "Oh, but if you go, everyone else will feel super awkward." Just constant gaslighting, reminding Sienna over and over that nobody in this world loved her except Lorena. After years of that mental manipulation, Sienna sometimes wanted to run, but Lorena's grip was way too tight to break. Fast forward 6 months. If Lorena shows up and finds Sienna chilling in the Moon Cradle suite, she is going to lose it. Deborah glared at Sienna, who was curled up in the tiny maid's room. She was practically begging her, "Take up space, go to the Moon Cradle." The Duke was out hunting magic beasts. Asir was back at the military academy, and Michael was MIA. So Sienna didn't get the pressure. Deborah was furious, claiming Sienna sleeping in the servant quarters was basically an insult to the Grand Duchy. Sienna heard that and thought, please, in my last life I lived in a broom closet for decades. How is this insulting me? Seeing Sienna sighing like the weight of the world was on her shoulders, Deborah decided to intervene. She dragged Sienna out for some fresh air, aka a forced tour of the Duke's mansion. Deborah was hyping everything up, but Sienna was bored out of her mind. Having lived through this timeline once, she knew every inch of this place better than the architect. They reached the second-floor gallery. Just as Deborah was about to launch into a lecture, they hit a snag. Michael. He was standing right there. Sienna's survival instinct kicked in, and she ducked behind Deborah. She knew Michael despised cowards. If I look pathetic enough, maybe he'll leave. Michael looked like he was holding back a scream. He sighed, dismissed Deborah, and dropped a bomb. I'll show her around myself. Sienna felt like she'd just been struck by lightning. Deborah, however, was thrilled. She literally shoved Sienna forward and bolted. Sienna could only watch in horror as her human shield vanished down the hall. Then came Michael's icy voice from behind. "No, Beau, really, let me give you a tip. Don't get too comfortable here." Sienna didn't even flinch. She was used to this trash talk from him. His personality was a carbon copy of the last timeline, constantly mocking her, telling her she was only fit for scrubbing floors, and asking why she hadn't packed her bags yet. She knew the script. She knew what he wanted to hear, so she looked him dead in the eye and said, "Honestly, I agree. Rest assured, an orphan like me wouldn't dare dream of becoming a nocte. I know my place. When the time is right, I'm off to the military academy. I won't be in your way." But instead of smiling, Michael looked shocked. Then he got angry. "How can you just say you're leaving?" His reaction threw Sienna for a total loop. Michael turned bright red. Realizing he was breaking character, he quickly pivoted awkwardly, changing the subject, and dragging her into the showroom. I don't hate you, I just have to keep my promises, okay?" Sienna had no choice but to follow him, resigned to her fate. As they walked through the mansion, Michael gave these super serious explanations, but Sienna felt like time had stopped. She was plotting her escape, until a flash of light from a nearby glass case caught her eye. It was mesmerizing. Michael followed her gaze and rushed over to explain. "That is the flame of Isaros. It's one of the named relics sealed away 1,000 years ago. Ancient loot that only the worthy can claim. There are 13 named relics in the world. The Nocta family holds 4. Roderick and Asir have 2, and 1 is missing. But Isaros is special. It has never been conquered by a human, ever." Sienna stared at the holy relic, feeling a bizarre sense of déjà vu. Suddenly, it hit her. In her past life, Lorena touched Isaros. But that was after Lorena stole Sienna's magic. The two powers collided violently. It knocked Lorena into a coma for 2 weeks. Esaros shattered in half and vanished, but when Lorena woke up, she was hailed as the prodigy who conquered the unconquerable. She became an instant celebrity. Wait, if Lorena only triggered it because she had my magic, what happens if I touch it right now? Will it react, or will I just die? Her hand started moving toward the glass on its own. You want to touch it? Michael's voice snapped her back to reality. She quickly apologized. Whatever, go ahead. It won't do anything anyway. But she pulled back. The timing wasn't right. Michael, taking her silence as interest, kept rambling on. Sienna was fighting to keep her eyes open, yawning huge yawns. Seeing she was totally zoning out, Michael finally snapped. Are you even listening to a word I'm saying? I'm pouring my heart out here, and you're literally yawning. He was so done with her attitude, he just stormed off. Peace and quiet at last. Or so Sienna thought. She let out a heavy sigh, but her moment of zen was cut short. Deborah marched in, killing the vibe instantly. Get dressed, she ordered. It's go time. The Duke was back, and he hadn't just won. He'd absolutely crushed those magic beasts. He was returning to the mansion early, riding the high of victory. That meant tonight wasn't just dinner. It was a high-stakes family banquet. Even Asir was dragging himself back for the occasion. Sienna wanted absolutely 0 parts of this drama. She tried to play the I'm socially awkward card, claiming she didn't know the etiquette, just to get out of it. But Deborah wasn't buying it. She stood her ground, insisting Sienna had to show face because there was good news waiting. Yeah, right. Walking through the halls, Sienna felt a chill. The mansion gave off major haunted house energy tonight. It triggered a flashback to her first life. Back when she was a terrified newbie, too scared to even close her eyes. The heavy doors creaked open, revealing the unholy trinity, decked out in their finest formal wear, sitting like statues. Meanwhile, Sienna stood there in her crusty orphanage rags. Talk about awkward. Were they trying to flex on her, intimidate her, jokes on you? She thought. I already know I don't belong in this picture. Then she spotted it. Pomegranates centered on the table. That wasn't just fruit. It was the Nocta family crest. You don't just use sacred symbols for decor. Sienna's stomach dropped. This wasn't a casual meal. This was a setup. The table was loaded with gourmet food, but Sienna couldn't force a bite down. Asir noticed her staring at her plate and frowned. Food, not good enough for you. She froze. Since when did he notice her existence? Her brain spiraled. Is he calling her ungrateful? Panic mode engaged. She immediately started apologizing. Asir blinked, looking genuinely flustered. He hadn't meant to sound harsh. Raderick stepped in to save the mood. Stop apologizing, the Duke said, his voice surprisingly calm. If it's not your vibe, don't eat it. He signaled the butler to swap the menu. Sienna shook her head, shutting him down. Raderick watched her cold reaction and thought, okay, maybe I rushed this. He decided to skip the small talk and get straight to the ritual. He snapped his fingers, ordering the servants to bring the ceremonial fruit. He grabbed a knife and sliced the pomegranate open. Bright red juice coated his hands like fresh blood. The dripping fruit was placed in front of Sienna. Is this supposed to mean something? She asked, eyeing it suspiciously. The butler stepped up, explaining the Nocte tradition. When a new member joins the pack, the Alpha, the head of the house hand-delivers pomegranates for everyone to share. It symbolized the family sharing blessings as endless as the seeds inside. But through Sienna's trauma lens, that didn't look like fruit. It looked like a slab of raw, bleeding meat. The ceremony felt like predators gathering to tear apart a fresh kill. She watched the others eat feeling sick, but forced herself to pop a seed into her mouth. Instantly, hallucinations of gore flashed in her mind. She gagged, fighting the urge to throw up. Ignoring her pale face, Raderick dropped the mic. Sienna is officially a member of the Nocte family. She couldn't process it. I'm just a stray, she whispered, shaking. Whatever you want from me, I can't do it. I can't be what you want. Raderick frowned. That wasn't just shyness. That was fear. A child doesn't speak like that. Unless someone taught them to feel worthless. His eyes narrowed. Someone had been poisoning her mind, and who was always hovering around her? Deborah. The maid felt the Duke's glare and started sweating. I swear on my life, she pleaded. I'm loyal. I would never trash talk the family. She scrambled for an excuse. It must be gossip she heard when I wasn't around. But look, the young miss ate the fruit. She's one of us now. This won't happen again. The butler nodded gravely, promising to keep a tighter leash on the staff. That's when Deborah saw an opening to shift the focus. She needs a private tutor, she suggested. Asir nodded in agreement. Education is non-negotiable. Then came the plot twist. I'll teach her, Michael announced. Sienna's jaw hit the floor. Excuse me, didn't you want me dead this morning? Now you want to play study buddies. Raderick loved the idea and gave the green light immediately. He turned to Sienna, his expression softening into something like, Fatherhood, you are my daughter, a recognized Nocte. Please, don't let the haters get to you. Just forget the gossip. Sienna almost laughed. Forget the agony of her past life, the rejection, the way they looked at her like she was garbage. Did he really think a simple forget it could fix a shattered soul. The memories hit her like a truck, her heart physically aching, until she couldn't draw a breath. The room started spinning. Everyone froze, shocked, as she crumpled to the floor. Roderick lunged forward, catching her before she hit the ground. He screamed for a medic, whispering comforts, but Sienna wasn't having it. She shoved him away with every ounce of weak strength she had. His touch burned. This fake kindness was worse than the cruelty. If she let them in now, they'd just manipulate her again. She'd be a puppet in this house of horrors. She'd already died once because of their innocent malice. Her mind snapped under the pressure, and everything went black. Doctor. The diagnosis dropped like a bomb. Severe malnutrition mixed with extreme stress had caused her system to totally crash. Roderick was eating himself alive with guilt, realizing he'd forced a fragile, unprepared child to endure that suffocating dinner. Meanwhile, Sienna was dragged back into the abyss of her nightmares, reliving the moment she believed she'd stolen. Her sister's magic. The guilt gnawed at her 24/7, stealing her sleep and her sanity. She'd scrub floors until her fingers bled just to numb the pain, but the demons in her head wouldn't silence. After the magic transfer, the markings on her skin felt like chains choking the life out of her. Even crying felt like a luxury she couldn't afford. Lorena had suggested a way to pay back the Nocta family craft, a protective amulet for Asir. It was a high-level artifact, meant to ward off evil vibes. Sienna hesitated, terrified her. Pathetic magic levels wouldn't be enough to pull it off. But this was her shot to be more than just a glorified cleaner. She poured her heart and soul into it. When it was finally done, she handed it to Asir with trembling hope, only to find it later tossed in a filthy corner like trash. That's when something inside her shattered. She drained her magic and shredded her hands on those thorns, all to prove her worth. And it was discarded without a second thought. Asir's words echoed in her mind, "Sienna, I know you tried. But your effort is worthless." Just as she feared her hope had been nothing but a cruel delusion, she actually thought she could help. Lost in that dark memory, she bumped into Michael. His voice dripped with venom. "Must be nice being so busy. You know you're only fit for maid work, right? Why don't you just get lost, Sienna?" She tried to avoid the drama, but he doubled down on the mockery. "Oh wait, how could you leave on your own? You spend all day hovering around Asir, chasing some impossible fairy tale, are we?" Sienna knew he had it all twisted. She just wanted to be useful, but clearly even that was a pipe dream now. Was she not even allowed to dream? Michael scoffed, shameless, and stormed off. Sienna snapped awake, gasping. The trauma of her past life clung to her like a cold sweat. She scanned the room and realized she was back. In the moon cradle, lying in the bed that belonged to Lorena in the previous timeline. How could she possibly chill here? Fighting the nausea, she retreated to the tiny maid's room next door. Only this cramped space offered a shred of peace. But the next morning, Michael walked in on this scene and completely lost his cool. Deborah rushed to cover for her, claiming Sienna was delirious with fever, and wandered into the maid's quarters by mistake. Michael wasn't buying it. "She leaves a luxury bed for this dump. Make it make sense." He side-eyed Deborah, suspecting a performance. "Are you just pretending to be nice to her because my father is watching?" Deborah felt the sting of the unfair accusation. Before she could defend herself, Sienna stepped up. She clarified that sleeping there was 100% her choice. Michael looked baffled. Why would anyone choose suffering over comfort? Sienna found his confusion hilarious. In her past life, he thought her suffering was totally justified. Why the sudden curiosity? She told him the moon cradle was too fancy for someone like her. The maid's room felt like the orphanage, familiar and safe. "But you're a daughter of the Nocte family now," he argued, "and you ate the pomegranate." He tried to explain the fruit's deep meaning, but honestly, she wished she could just throw it back up. Did he expect her to clap and cheer because he dropped the family card? He was painfully naive, seeing the tension spike. Deborah basically kicked Michael out, saying Sienna needed to change. That's when he realized she was still in her PJs. His face turned beet red. He mumbled a sorry and bolted. The doctor who checked her over gave the all clear and left. This was a new face. The old doctor from her past life used to ignore her existence and refused to treat her. What she didn't know was that the old guy got fired and demoted for missing her typhoid diagnosis. Now, the entire staff knew better than to neglect her. Deborah hovered over her during breakfast. The intense attention made her skin crawl. But she couldn't say no, so she ate like a good little doll. Then Deborah dropped the news. Big day ahead. Roderick had personally summoned a tailor for her. Sienna couldn't wrap her head around why the Duke, an ice block in her past life, was suddenly acting like father of the year. Deborah and the tailor took turns, hyping up Sienna's natural beauty and vibe, but Sienna, drowning in insecurity, felt as insignificant as a speck of dust. She was just an orphan kid, just the radiant. Lorena was totally built for this kind of drama. Just as Sienna was freezing up, a guy burst into the room carrying a massive bouquet of roses. Delivery for Miss Sienna. Staring at the gorgeous blooms right in front of her face, she could barely process it. But was she thrilled? Not even a little bit. Panic started creeping in. She checked the tag attached to the stems, wishing you a speedy recovery. A seer. Ugh, of course. It was from a seer. The maids were absolutely freaking out. So romantic. Each one of these costs a solid gold coin. Sienna's jaw dropped. She had no clue this bouquet was worth a small fortune. Honestly, she would have preferred the cold hard cash. Military academy tuition is expensive, and that money would have been way more useful. Then, it hit her, a flashback to her past life. Asir sending flowers. That was exactly the trigger that made Michael get the completely wrong idea back then. Did he seriously think she was trying to marry Asir? She knew Michael was clueless, but she didn't think his imagination ran that wild. This had Lorena's fingerprints all over it. Orchestrating a mess like this to stir up drama, that is totally her style. That snake tricked her out of her magic once before, but in this timeline, no way. She wasn't letting history repeat itself. First, she told the messenger to pass on her thanks to Asir. Then she pulled a pro move. Let's split these flowers up among everyone here. Back at the orphanage, we shared every gift we got. I want you guys to have a piece of this joy too. Boom, crisis averted. No misunderstandings with Michael, and she still honors Asir's gift without keeping it. 2 birds, 1 stone. The staff was absolutely buzzing, thanking Sienna left and right for the unexpected treat. Her popularity score with the servants just skyrocketed. She even handed a rose to the seamstress as a personal thank you. Sienna kept just the last bloom and the card for herself. The tailor was so touched by the gesture, she decided to return the favor. She gifted Sienna a stunning sample gown, the trendiest piece in the collection, a total showstopper that defined the designer's talent. It was the shop's crown jewel. Sienna admitted the fit was fire, but the color palette it was giving, baby chick. Deborah beamed, thanking the tailor profusely. Then she turned to Sienna with a grin. Perfect. You can rock this for class tomorrow. Class, already. Sienna's stomach churned. She had a sinking feeling the private tutor was going to be that same guy who loathed her guts. The tailor and Deborah started running through the inventory: coats, dresses, loungewear. We are talking over 100 outfits in total. Sienna could not believe the Duke went this hard for her wardrobe. Then Deborah flashed a blank check, signed by the Duke himself. Sienna let out a sigh. Rich people logic is just different. The next morning she slipped into the fancy yellow dress. Deborah was gushing about how enchanting she looked, but Sienna felt like a walking highlighter in these bright colors. But hey, look at those expensive gems and that premium fabric. If she pawned this stuff later, she could cover rent for 6 months easy. Suddenly, the outfit looked a whole lot better. For the first time, she actually felt a wave of relief washing over her. She pushed open the study door. Instead of the tutor, she found a surprise guest waiting for her, Michael. He coolly announced he was just there to supervise her studying. Sienna was literally too stunned to speak. Doesn't this kid have his own classes to worry about? She just shook her head, gave up, and took her seat quietly. Michael was secretly mesmerized, unable to take his eyes off her. But he kept up the tough act. Heard you got some new gear. You don't look so basic anymore. Just then, Tutor Level walked in. The second he saw Michael watching from the sidelines, the guy immediately switched to suck-up mode. Sienna racked her brain. Was this the creep who bullied her in her past life? She played it safe and greeted him politely. Before the real lesson started, Level decided to launch a pop quiz. Write down the alphabet letters you know. Michael started scribbling away with confidence, but Sienna froze up. In her past life, she had trained like a maniac to perfect her handwriting just to forge letters for Lorena. But she is supposed to be a kid now. If she drops perfect calligraphy, it is going to look super suspicious. While she was debating whether to fake being bad, she realized her current hands had zero muscle memory for writing. The lines came out all wobbly and her fingers wouldn't stop shaking. Michael leaned over and dropped the most extra compliment. Nice writing, truly worthy of our family. Getting hyped up by a 10-year-old, kind of embarrassing, honestly. Lovell wasn't having it. He slammed the paper on the desk and snapped at Sienna to stop messing around and practice seriously. Suddenly, another guy barged in. It was Michael's tutor there to drag him back to his own class. Sienna raised an eyebrow, and Michael panicked. Don't get it twisted. I wasn't hanging out because I was worried about you or anything. He pointed a finger at Lovell. You better teach her right. Don't slack off just because I am gone. The man didn't wait for a rebuttal. He just grabbed Michael and hauled him out of the room. Once they were gone, Lovell, the guy who was just bowing and scraping, did a total 180. That nasty look confirmed it. He was definitely the nightmare teacher who made her life hell before. And just like old times, he started spewing venom and cruel words at her. To be honest, Sienna actually preferred his constant trash talk. At least he owned his nastiness. It was the two-faced fakes, the wolves in sheep's clothing, that really suffocated her. Lobel, however, was currently high on his own ego, getting a twisted kick out of roasting Sienna for being a mixed-blood orphan. The insults didn't actually sting, but honestly, she was over the personal jabs. It was getting old. Fast. She knew the truth he was projecting. He came from the gutter just like her, a mediocre nobody, stuck tutoring orphans, because he couldn't hack it anywhere else. The guy was practically dripping with jealousy. When he wouldn't shut up, Sienna cut him off cold. You keep obsessing over orphans in every sentence. Is that a sore spot for you, Bullseye? Lobel snapped. Her calm shade humiliated him. Raging, he grabbed her ruff and raised a hand to strike. Sienna squeezed her eyes shut, calculating the cost. Let him hit me, she thought. If a slap gets me a new teacher, it's worth the price. Stop! A furious roar froze the room. Raderick stood in the doorway, eyes ice cold, a scowl carving his face. Panic mode engaged. Lobel shoved Sienna aside and played the victim, claiming she insulted him. Raderick shot a side eye at Sienna. She froze, unable to read his expression. Was he going to buy the lie like in her past life? No way. She was done being the scapegoat. She wasn't letting history repeat itself. Desperate to kill the misunderstanding, she stepped up, clutched his sleeve, and looked up at Raderick with pure pleading eyes. The message was clear. Please believe me. Raderick was stunned. This girl usually avoided him. Like the plague, now she's initiating contact. She must be terrified. The tutor tried to spin another lie, but Raderick shut that down fast. The guard stepped in and tackled him. You dare disrespect a daughter of House Nocta. You're going to pay for that. As the screaming tutor got dragged out, Sienna finally let out a breath she didn't know she was holding. Raderick wanted to comfort her, but he held back, terrified of scaring her off. Slow and steady, he told himself. Don't pressure her. Get some rest, he murmured, turning to leave before he made things awkward. Sienna felt like she was in a dream. The Duke chose her side unconditionally. But why? She clenched her fists. She couldn't get addicted to this. If his kindness evaporated one day, the fall into the abyss would destroy her. But right now, she had a burning question. She grilled Deborah, asking for a detailed breakdown of what that pomegranate actually meant. But Deborah was just the head maid. She didn't have a clue about the deep lore. Ask young Master Michael, she suggested. Speak of the devil, Michael came crashing into the room right on cue. Deborah immediately scolded him for the lack of manners. Sheepish Michael zipped back out and knocked properly this time. Only after getting the green light did he peek his head and apologizing profusely. Then he switched to rage mode defending Sienna, ranting that if he'd been there, he would have crushed that guy. Deborah wiped a tear, touched by the bro energy, but Sienna just felt trapped. She didn't want to owe anyone favors. Too bad Michael had already gone rogue and got permission from his dad. For the foreseeable future, Sienna was stuck taking classes with him. It hit her like a lightning bolt. She was forced to spend every day with someone she was trying to avoid. Seeing her twisted expression, Michael totally misread the room, thinking she felt guilty. Don't sweat it, he misunderstood, thinking she was afraid of being a burden. He figured she was the type to suffer in silence, so he doubled down. I won't let anything like that happen to you. Ever again. Father's vetting the new teacher personally. Then came the pep talk. You gotta show them your skills so they stop treating you like a charity case. But Sienna wasn't interested in proving anything to anyone. Why build sandcastles when the tide is coming to wash you away? One slip up and she'd drown in the giant waves anyway. So she didn't give a damn about their respect. Michael didn't get her nihilistic vibe at all, but whatever. He dragged her to the classroom anyway. Enter Seth, Michael's tutor. The guy was polite, humble, total gentleman vibes. Sienna recognized him immediately as the guy who picked up Michael before. His smile was warm, gentle, and almost too friendly. Seeing Seth dive straight into magic theory, she raised a hand, admitting she couldn't actually write yet. Seth waved it off. Don't worry. Writing is basic stuff. Other teachers will handle that. You'll pick it up naturally. Michael leaned in, whispering like a conspiracy theorist. Don't let the nice act fool you. He's a monster. He'll grind you into the dirt with studying. Sienna's eyes lit up. She bowed deeply. Thank you. Finally, a teacher who wouldn't baby her. She was grateful for a serious mentor. This was exactly the boot camp she needed for the military academy. Seth blinked, stunned. Did he just find a model student? Even though she couldn't write well, she was taking notes like her life depended on it. Seth was officially hyped to teach her. He broke down the nitty-gritty of magic, theory, stability, mechanics, the works, revealing that healers aren't just doctors, they're elite-tier specialists. The guy basically speed ran through half a textbook in one breath and dumped a mountain of homework on her. When he paused to ask if Sienna was struggling to keep up, she didn't even flinch. She radiated pure confidence, convincing him right then and there that he'd struck gold with this rare genius-level prodigy. Across 2 entire lifetimes, this was Sienna's first shot at a legitimate magic education. It was a total 180 from her past life. No Lorena snatching her powers away this time. She was finally standing at the starting line, and you better believe she was going to squeeze every ounce of potential out of this second chance. Meanwhile, over at the military academy, Siobhan Asir stood framed by the window, staring into the distance. A messenger falcon circled down, landing on his arm with a heavy flutter. He unfurled the message eyes, scanning the ink intently. Noticing the Daily Mail drop, his buddy nudged him, asking if some major drama was going down at the estate lately. But Asir just iced him out, turning his back without a word. His mind was made up. He was heading home this weekend. Back at the Nocte mansion, Michael caught wind that Sienna had been locked in grind mode for 3 straight days. and he started whining about having 0 brain cells for studying compared to her. Sienna was left completely speechless. Like, why the fake humble act? She knew for a fact that he dominated the rankings at the military academy, while she had to claw and scratch her way through just to comprehend a single sentence. But honestly, Sienna was vibing with the struggle. She loved the solo grind even as her hands cramped and blistered from endless writing. Deborah clocked the glow up too, watching Sienna transform from a silent ghost into someone bursting with scholarly hype. She suggested Sienna take a breather and touch some grass in the garden. Right at that moment, Asir rolled back onto the scene. The butler wasn't stupid. He knew exactly why the young master was suddenly making these weekend trips. Seeing him head for the stairs, the butler dropped a polite warning. If you're heading to the young Mrs. room, you're wasting your time. She's been glued to the study lately. That's when it hit Asir. He wasn't walking to his room. His feet had automatically dragged him toward Sienna. His subconscious was driving the bus, desperate for just a glimpse of her. He realized he totally loses his cool when it comes to Sienna, but then he remembered the way she looks at him, pure disgust and rejection. Figuring his violent side had terrified her, he scrapped the idea of seeing her and turned to bail. The butler knew the truth, though. Asir was obsessed, demanding daily updates and even sending flowers when she was sick. But it didn't make sense if he cared that much. Why not check on her himself? Asir finally caved and went to the study. But just his luck, Sienna was out for that walk. He scanned the room, checking her setup. Once he confirmed she wasn't being mistreated, he finally let out a breath. This used to be his grind station as a kid. He ran his fingers over the desk and chair they'd both used, trying to feel some kind of connection through the wood. Then, something under the desk caught his eye. He froze. His eyes went wide, filled with total disbelief. It was the rose, the one he sent her. He tried to gaslight himself into thinking it was just a random gift to her, something easily tossed aside and forgotten. But if that was true, why did his chest hurt so bad? Deborah walked in and gasped at the scene. Before she could explain, Asir spun around to leave, dropping one cold command: "Don't tell Sienna I was here." He glanced back one last time at the withered rose lying in the shadows. Suddenly, a massive wave of déjà vu slammed into him. His eyes trembled violently. What was this feeling? It wasn't just familiar. It felt like a memory he'd actually lived through. Meanwhile, Sienna got back from her walk to find the servants running around like headless chickens. Michael broke the news: a letter just dropped from the House of Geneva. Their daughter was coming to challenge ownership of the Isaros heirloom. Sienna remembered that name, a sacred relic. Humans used to fight off magic beasts. It was also the exact item she planned to use as her ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card. Michael explained that since the Flame of Isaros didn't have a master yet, literally any mage had the right to throw their hat in the ring. Sienna frowned. In her past timeline, the Count of Geneva was a total fence-sitter, always following the crowd and playing it safe. So why the sudden aggressive move? Something wasn't adding up. She realized the variable was her. She was the glitch in the matrix, changing the past and present. The Countess was probably seething with jealousy, seeing Duke Nocte spoil an orphan, convinced her own daughter was 100 times better and deserved to snatch that spot. Honestly, this played right into Sienna's hands. In her last life, she'd beefed with Lorena and self-destructed. But being the Duke's ward wasn't just about status. It meant being positioned next to Asir, the ultimate husband material. So, here's the tea: everyone was thirsty for that foster daughter spot, even though technically there was no rule saying she had to marry Asir. But the outside world, they were totally convinced that securing a room in the Nocte mansion was basically a golden ticket. Like, step 1, get adopted. Step 2, become Asir's bride. Asir just scoffed at the absurdity of it all. Deep down, he knew he was the unintentional drama magnet causing this mess, but protocol tied his hands. He couldn't just ban the Count's daughter from trying. In his heart, it was Sienna or nothing. Meanwhile, Sienna was struggling, literally stretching to grab a book from a high shelf. Ever since news dropped that Miss Geneva was visiting, every maid in the mansion had bailed to prep for the VIP guest. Even the new maid Deborah assigned to Sienna was MIA. Sienna realized if she wanted anything done, she had to go solo. Whatever, she'd survived worse in her past life, but the books were jammed tight, and she took a hard spill, hitting the floor. That's when the silence hit her. It was dead quiet. Too quiet. Had she gotten too used to being pampered? Why did this sting so much? Was she actually catching feelings of entitlement? She forced herself to snap out of it, diving into her magic studies, the only distraction that actually worked, to numb the ache in her chest. By afternoon, her stomach was growling like a beast, so she went on a solo food run. Relying on muscle memory from her previous life, she navigated to the kitchen. She was just about to snag some bread, when boom, Asir was standing right there in the doorway. He looked shook. "Why are you down here?" she mumbled, blaming the hunger. "Didn't the head maid send you a tray?" "She's busy, so she assigned someone else." "Okay, so where is she? Why are you foraging for scraps alone?" Asir's mind went to the darkest place: was the staff bullying her? The fact that she knew exactly where the kitchen was meant this wasn't a one-time thing. His blood started to boil. He never imagined she was dealing with this kind of neglect. He reached out to comfort her pure instinct, but the second he moved, She flinched. Hard. It was a reflex from her past life, back when she thought Asir's coldness meant he hated her guts. She remembered giving him an amulet back then, hoping for a crumb of approval, only to get crushed by his icy response. Sienna, your efforts are pointless. That memory still cut deep. She begged him not to scold the staff on her behalf, and flat out refused to let him walk her back. Perfect timing, the butler showed up. Asir went into full boss mode, ordering him to watch over Sienna and deal with the slacking servants. Watching her walk away, Asir couldn't shake the look in her eyes. It wasn't just fear. It was a wall. She was guarding herself against him. By sunset, the Geneva squad finally rolled up. The daughter Isabel stepped out with hair like literal fire. The second she locked eyes with Asir, she turned on the charm, acting all poised and thanking him for taking her sudden request. Her mom, the Countess, was right there, hyping up her daughter as absolute perfection. Asir saw right through the fake act, but because he had manners, he invited them inside. Isabel was internally screaming like, "Oh my god, I'm actually dining at the Nocta mansion. Is this real life?" Michael, however, found her loud and annoying. Everyone knew the game she was playing. She was here to snatch Sienna's crown. Pure and simple, but they all had to wear their masks and play along. They entered the salon and Asir paused. He was low-key stunned. Sienna was already there, looking absolutely elegant. Michael ditched Isabel, immediately rushing over to Sienna, completely ignoring etiquette to yap her ear off. Seeing them that close, Asir felt a sharp pang of jealousy. He introduced the guests. "This is the daughter of the Nocte family, Sienna." Isabel scanned Sienna with a look that screamed pure hostility. "So this is the orphan everyone says the Nocte family is obsessed with." The Countess decided to be messy and immediately asked for Sienna's last name. Sienna knew exactly what that was about. She kept it real. "I'm an orphan. I don't have one." Michael looked ready to throw hands at the Countess for that low blow. But the Countess just smirked, raised her wineglass and pivoted. A toast to young Asir for his amazing hospitality. Isabel was gazing at Asir with total hard eyes, but he just gave her the driest, most polite response possible. Meanwhile, Michael was busy being the perfect gentleman serving Sienna food. Asir was seething with jealousy watching them, but seeing Sienna actually eating well, that gave him some peace. Suddenly, Isabel decided to stir the pot again. "Sienna, I'm so jealous. You have no idea how lucky you are. Nobody has ever had the honor of being adopted by Duke Nocte before." The green-eyed monster was all over her face, but Sienna was used to the shade. "I am deeply grateful for His Excellency's grace." Boom. The room went dead silent. Isabel blinked, totally confused by the shift in the air. How does a girl from the gutters carry herself with the ice-cold composure of a queen? Sienna didn't even expect her clapback to hit that hard instantly, checking Isabel. No surprise there. Compared to the twisted, venomous Lorena, Isabel is strictly minor league. Sienna let out a helpless sigh, but Isabel's insecurity twisted it into an insult. She was convinced she was being mocked. The audacity. "You think you're special. I am the only one worthy of the Grand Duke's name." Desperate to flex her superiority, Isabel threw down the gauntlet. They would both face the Isaros trial tomorrow. The room went dead silent. Even the Countess was blindsided by this sudden power play, but Isabel doubled down, smirking. Since she's the Grand Duke's official foster daughter, surely her talent eclipses mine, right? If I were to take on the trial alone, it just wouldn't be fair. It was a trap. Isabel knew they'd both likely fail, but she planned to outshine Sienna in the process and expose her as a total fraud in front of everyone. But Sienna wasn't rattled. She thought, now things are getting spicy. This might actually be my golden ticket to escape this doomed timeline. Michael, on the other hand, was spiraling. Panic set in. If Sienna flopped and Isabel succeeded, what if that brat demanded Sienna be shipped back to the orphanage to steal her spot? "So, I'd just go back to the orphanage?" Sienna asked. Her nonchalance was driving him insane. "How can you say that with a straight face? You think we'd just dump you? You're literally family now. You ate the pomegranate, there's no undo button. Here's the tea in the Nocte estate. That fruit is exclusively for the chosen ones," marking their official initiation into the clan. But it wasn't just a snack. It was an ancient blood magic ritual, disguised as tradition. It allowed outsiders with zero Nocte DNA to survive unharmed inside the estate, which is protected by lethal magical barriers. That's when the reality check hit Sienna. That fruit chemically altered her aura to match the Nocte bloodline. She was locked in. Her stomach dropped. She was tethered to this toxic family for the rest of her existence. Meanwhile, Isabel was pacing her room, manic with anxiety. Reality was setting in, and she was regretting her impulsive mouth. The Countess grabbed her spiraling daughter and whispered smoothly, "Chill, sweetie. You're royalty compared to that stray. Plus, you've got me. I've already pulled some strings with the head maid. That Duchess title is as good as yours." Asira was still. With the drama of the SRO's challenge looming, the butler tried to run damage control. Both girls are gonna flop anyway, so don't sweat the outcome. But let's be real, that ritual isn't safe. Challengers occasionally get trapped in the void during the process. We're talking life or death situations with zero exit strategy. He was terrified Sienna would get stuck in a nightmare scenario like that. He grilled the butler. "What's your honest take on Sienna's raw talent?" The old man shrugged before the initiation. "Nobody has a clue. Only the Duke has the eye for it, but he's currently MIA on the battlefield and isn't coming home anytime soon." So Asir pitched a desperate idea. "What if we just sabotage the setup so the challenge can't even happen?" The butler shot that down immediately. First off, the Count's family would absolutely riot. Second, Sienna would get dragged by the public afterward. Asir hesitated, wishing he could just take the bullet and face the trial in her place. Suddenly, Michael burst into the room, begging for backup. He claimed Sienna was trying to leave, and there she was, eyes blazing with resolve. "Lord Asir, I'm challenging Isaros." Asir shut it down instantly. "No way. That trial is brutal. You need serious training before you even think about it." Sienna tilted her head confused. "But my teacher said I could just walk in." Asir shot a death glare at C's. C started sweating and preaching. "Every mage has the right to fight their destiny. Sienna is no exception." Michael panicked. He stomped hard on Cess's foot to shut him up. Then he turned to Asir. "Sienna thinks if Isabel wins, she gets sent back to the orphanage." Asir froze, stunned. But Sienna stood there completely unfazed. Asir couldn't wrap his head around why she expected to be tossed aside so easily. Did she really feel like a stranger in the Nocta mansion? That thought broke him. He sighed and finally gave the green light. Permission granted. She headed back to her room, feeling victorious, only to find the new maid had prepared a feast, big enough for an army. Staring at that mountain of food gave her massive anxiety. She spun around and bolted, hiding behind a tree in the garden. Ever since they fired that negligent maid, the new staff was paranoid. She'd starve, trying to stuff her face every 5 minutes. That's when she ran into Isabel. The girl approached with maximum sass, walking around like you own the place. "If I were you, I'd be hiding my face in shame. Then again, can't expect a stray orphan to have any dignity." Sienna was bewildered. In her past life, the Count's family wasn't this openly hostile. Was this girl trying to bait her into a fight? But honestly, her insults were weak. Zero damage. Sienna's lips curled into a tiny smirk that triggered Isabel instantly. "You think this is funny, you parasite? The Nocta daughter title belongs to someone with actual class and merit. Useless trash like you doesn't deserve a seat at the table." Sienna looked at her with pure admiration. "I totally agree. That's why I'm rooting for you to take the spot." Isabel nodded smugly. "Exactly. You should be supporting me." "Wait, what?" Her brain short-circuited. The fan in her hand slipped and hit the dirt. Sienna graciously bent down and picked it up. She grabbed Isabel's hand warmly. "Please take my place. I'll be cheering for you from the sidelines." That broke Isabel's brain. What is wrong with this kid? Sienna strolled back to her room. Michael updated her father's back gotta greet guests. As the hostess, the thought of another social event was exhausting, so she started coughing. Fake sick mode activated. Michael looked worried. "You okay?" She lied. "Just caught a chill in the garden." Suddenly a hand rested against her forehead. He leaned in close to check for a fever. The moment their eyes locked, the world seemed to pause for a second. Michael gave a knowing smile. "Dealing with people who openly hate you kind of kills the appetite, doesn't it?" She was shook. He saw right through her. Then he whispered, "I want to kick them out too, but as a Nocte, my hands are tied right now. But father is home. Tomorrow this whole charade ends." He reached out and gently patted her head, his face unusually tender. "You're a good kid." Sienna stood there, paralyzed by the sudden affection. Michael made a quick exit. She touched her hair, confused. What kind of 10-year-old has a smile like that? Next morning, she woke up feeling off. Why didn't anyone wake her up for the big day? She hopped out of bed, ready to roll. But the door wouldn't budge, locked from the outside. It hit her instantly. Someone was trying to sabotage her entry. Honestly, this trick was painfully basic. She dealt with way worse schemes in her last life. She just walked back to bed, waiting for the inevitable rescue. Moments later, Deborah's screaming echoed outside. The door finally swung open, revealing a cozy Sienna. Back in her room, Sienna was stressing out but trying to play it cool. She told Deborah there was nothing she could do anyway, so she might as well catch some Z's. Deborah was shook. She didn't expect Sienna to be so chill about being locked up, let alone ready to nap without screaming for help. Sienna shrugged, admitting she figured nobody was coming to save her. That hit Deborah hard. Did Sienna think the Countess had bought her off? Sienna didn't answer the awkward silence, just told her to hustle so they could leave. Outside, the tension was thick. Everyone was waiting, and the complaints were getting louder. Michael was pacing terrified that something terrible had happened to Sienna. Meanwhile, the Countess and Isabel exchanged smug glances, thinking their little trap had worked perfectly. Just then, Sienna and Deborah burst onto the scene. Facing the angry mob, Deborah immediately dropped to her knees, begging for mercy. She told Duke Nocte there was a legit reason for the delay. "The young miss is late because of the guests here today." Hearing that the Countess started sweating bullets. "Guests? You mean us? Is this how Nocte treats visitors? The Countess snapped. Deborah clapped back, explaining that usually she handles Sienna personally, but with all the hosting duties, she had to assign a temp maid to watch the child. She never expected the new maid to starve Sienna, hearing his precious daughter had been mistreated. Roderick saw red. The crowd started whispering, letting a fragile kid go hungry. That was absolute trash behavior. The vibe shifted instantly to sympathy for Sienna. Then Deborah dropped the nuclear bomb. The young miss was late today, because that new maid locked her in her room. And the kicker, she confessed the Countess ordered the hit. The Countess promised 100 gold coins if she could stop Sienna from showing up. With the truth out, the Countess panicked and denied everything. Lies. Why would we do something so low? Roderick scoffed. So, my headmaid is just making this up for fun. Interesting. His glare was cold enough to freeze hell, terrifying the Countess. Suddenly the priest cut through the drama. Duke, we can't cancel the ritual. Let's start. He was basically warning the Countess punishment comes later. If she failed the challenge now, her fate would be even worse. Roderick roared that even if Isabel succeeded and claimed the title, Nocte would investigate this mess until the end. Seeing him so serious, Isabel started trembling. The Countess tried to hype her up, whispering that if she showed power superior to that orphan, all their problems would vanish. Isabel tried to believe it. If I prove I'm stronger than her, everyone will forget the abuse and worship me again. She got in, Sienna's face hissing. You think you deserve to stand next to me? Sienna fired back that at least she didn't have to scheme, just to get an invite. That burn triggered Isabel completely. A dark, heavy energy swirled in her eyes, scaring Sienna. That's when the challenge officially kicked off. The priest laid down the rules. Isaros picks the master. If he rejects you, deal with it. Once you own the title, you're the guardian of humanity forever. No takebacks. The priest called Isabel up first. She stared at the purification water holding Isaros, heart pounding out of her chest. The Countess held her breath, nervous. But the second Isabel reached out, a massive force blasted her body backward. Challenge over. She failed. The Countess couldn't accept reality and demanded a redo. Isabel ignored the warnings and shoved her hand back into the water. This time, an even more violent force slammed her straight into the ground. The Countess and Isabel were devastated. They realized they were officially doomed. Then the priest announced it was Sienna's turn. Hadine and Michael were sweating with nerves. Sienna took a deep breath and dipped her hand in. Silence. Nothing happened. The crowd was dead quiet. She remembered in her past life, Lorena broke Saros because she had two people's magic inside her. But now Sienna was alone, so maybe that's why it was a dud. Just as she was about to pull her hand out, a voice echoed in her head, "No, don't go." She looked around, but nobody else reacted. Was she hallucinating? It seemed she failed too. What do you mean? You didn't fail, the voice insisted. Sienna froze. Was the artifact talking to her? That's right. I've been waiting 2,000 years for you, my first master. Nope. She yanked her hand back and turned to leave. She just wanted to be a normie, living a quiet life, not the guardian of humanity, with the weight of the world on her shoulders. She lied, claiming her hand hurt, and she failed. But Esseros wasn't letting her off the hook that easily. The spirit lying in the water suddenly erupted to the surface, wrapped in magnificent blazing flames. Did you catch that roar? I told you not to leave. Boom. Purifying fire erupts out of nowhere, burning bright and fierce. Everyone is shook. They rush forward to save her, but Roderick throws up a hand. Hold up. He signals them to wait. The flames creep closer to Sienna, swallowing her whole in a ring of fire. But plot twist, she doesn't feel a thing. No heat. The inferno shrinks down to a tiny flickering flame. It's Isaros. And Sienna. She's still trying to swipe left on him. She stammers, "I never said I wanted to be your master." The spirit scoffs. "You think I've got nothing better to do? Then ask for your permission. Please. I'm not the first spirit you've met. Are you seriously comparing me to those basics?" But Sienna shakes her head. "I haven't seen any others." Isaros zips around her. Weird. Super weird. He definitely didn't mistake that scar. He gets in her face asking why she's refusing to sign the contract. "I just don't want to be your master," she insists. But before she can explain, the room starts spinning. Vision goes blurry. Lights out. She hits the floor. Turns out when young mages cast their first spell, it's pure instinct. They call it the initial awakening. The scale and vibe of the magic reveal exactly what kind of mage they're gonna be. And Sienna, she's pure purification class. The priest bets she's gonna be a top-tier healer. Everyone starts high-fiving Roderick. Healers are rare loot, you know. They save mages from corrupted energy. But the real kicker, Sienna just wiped out. The ancient dark vibes haunting the Nacht Mansion, stuff previous healers couldn't even touch. Her purification power came with a massive life force boost. She literally summoned early spring in the middle of this freezing winter. She brought the spring guys. To let her rest, Roderick tells everyone to get lost. He also orders the trial for the Countess and Isabel to start as soon as possible. Once the room clears, he whispers, "Sienna, open your eyes." Busted. She was totally faking it to avoid the crowd. Social battery drained. Roderick gets it though. Finally alone, she groans, I'm doomed. Totally doomed. Doomed. That's a bit dramatic, isn't it? Essaros pops up whining. He stretches his tiny limbs, hyped that he doesn't have to cosplay as a necklace anymore. Sienna looks defeated. He knocked her out and forced the contract. Essaros explains that dipping her hand in the purification water, that's old school code for, I want a contract. Basically, she sent the friend request and Essaros just hit accept. Fair and square. Knowing arguing is pointless, she pivots and asks Essaros what the deal is with purifying the knocked mansion. He puffs up his chest. It's a gift. I cast magic, so OP. That nobody will dare look down on you again, but Sienna's stressing. She hates the spotlight. Even with god-tier magic in this life, she just wants a quiet, low-key existence. No drama. Essaros' glow dims. You ditching me. Dream on. We're locked in forever, he says, looking totally offended. I did this for you. Didn't you notice people were corrupted by dark energy? Right under your nose. It clicks. The Countess's sudden personality switch. Isabel's behavior. All the toxic stuff they did. It was the dark energy. Meanwhile, the two villains are kneeling on the floor, shaking like leaves. They don't even understand why they did such messed up things. Raderick stares them down, stone cold. The Countess snapped back to reality the second she saw Essaros' fire. Now awake, she's super confused about why they acted so dumb. She realizes something was definitely wrong with them. But the damage is done. Explanations won't fix this. The Countess looks at Raderick and takes the fall. I did it all. Isabel knew nothing. She begs him to spare her daughter. But Raderick isn't showing mercy. He wants to make an example out of them. Cross a knocked and you're done. The cold blade reflects their terror. Wait, Sienna bursts onto the scene. Asir is shocked. He yells at the guards for letting her through. Sienna steps up, saying she came on her own. Don't blame them. Asir shuts his mouth immediately. The crowd gasps. A true master of Essaros, she even has Asir whipped. Raderick lowers his sword. His gaze turns icy, locking onto Sienna. That look triggers a flashback to her past life. Lorena framed her for using dark arts. No matter how much she pleaded, Duke Nacht still threw her in a dungeon. A soft voice snaps her back to reality. Raderick asks, what's wrong? She forced her breath steady. Essaros confirmed it. The Countess and her daughter were corrupted by dark energy. That's why they snapped. The crowd erupted in whispers. No wonder they were acting so psycho. Without that purification, they would have lost their minds completely. Sienna blinked. Essaros was actually pulling this off. She never expected the spirit to be that persuasive. Suddenly, Asiel cut in. Why save them, he asked. I didn't come to play hero. I can't. I just wanted the truth out there. Besides, punishing them isn't up to a stray orphan like me. It's up to you, Duke. Raderick paused, letting the silence hang. Then the verdict dropped. He ordered 50% of the Count's mining shares transferred directly to Sienna. Merely asking for a payout, that was the mercy rule. The Count's family practically bowed in gratitude. Even Isabel locked eyes with Sienna, silently swearing to repay this debt. But Sienna stared at the contract totally lost. Turns out this wasn't just some rock quarry. It was loaded with essence gem stones capable of holding high-tier magic. We're talking purification spells engraved right into the crystal. That stuff is priceless. She wanted to refuse. It was too much. Plus, in her past life, these mines belonged to Isabel, who lost them to Lorena after a shadow war. If Sienna snatched this fortune now, it could trigger a butterfly effect of disaster. But Asiel leaned in. Take it. A title mage needs resources. Sienna hesitated. Can't the Duke or you just hold on to it for me? Raderick stood up, casting a long shadow. He looked dead at her. Stop calling yourself an orphan. You own the name Essaros now. His voice dropped an octave. With power comes weight. You have to carry it. The pressure hit her like a truck. But then he softened. However, Sienna, if you want to walk away from it all, do it. She froze. Was he actually giving her permission to live for herself? Raderick wasn't done. Ignore the noise from the peanut gallery. The freedom House Nocta gives you is absolute. Even I can't touch it. So never say you're alone again. You have this mansion. You have us. She stood there, shook. He wasn't playing games. His eyes held genuine empathy. It made her head spin. The tragedies of her past timeline hadn't happened here. Was she the only one haunted by ghosts that didn't exist yet? But could she just delete that trauma, reboot her life like nothing happened? No. Not without an apology. Not without them feeling it. She'd rather carry the scars forever than let them off the hook. Sure, the Count paid up, but this wasn't over. In her final moments before, she'd found a vial, a poison designed to nullify magic. Where did it come from? And the dark energy infecting the Countess also a mystery. She needed to go full detective mode. Cut to late night, Michael found himself in a dreamscape, a room he knew too well. In front of him, a grown man paced the floor, practically vibrating with rage. The audacity, I can't stand looking at them. Why did father drag that brat into our home? Michael was paralyzed in his chair, desperate to see who the man was trashing. The man spun around. Michael's heart stopped. It was himself. He jolted awake, drenched in cold sweat. Who was that older version of him hating so much? And who was that girl who flashed by for a split second? Later, Cecila hyped Sienna up for becoming a healer. You brought spring to this cold house, he beamed. Sienna hadn't seen the shift in the atmosphere, but the praise hit the spot. Cecila watched her, feeling a warm fuzziness in his chest. He silently applauded the Duke's 4D chess move. Someone had pitched a massive gala to flex Sienna's new status to the world, but Roderick shut it down instantly. His reasoning: Sienna wasn't ready to navigate the Shark Tank as a Nocte daughter. He put a total ban on outsiders contacting her. The social climbers were panicking. They were desperate for an in, but Roderick had Sienna on lockdown. It was nearly impossible to get close. Still, that didn't stop the hustle. Mountains of gold-encrusted toys and gemstone trinkets started piling up at the gates. Bribes from the nobility. Roderick sent every single box back. Cecila didn't get it at the time, but seeing Sienna's genuine smile now, he realized the Duke was playing the ultimate guardian role. But there was a catch. Since Sienna unlocked her healer class at just 14, the rules were clear. She was drafted for the military academy. So, Cez decided to drop some knowledge and started the basic education curriculum. This was the moment she'd been manifesting. Pen in hand, eyes sparkling, she was absolutely locked in. CS broke down the complex lore of healers. Seeing her laser focus, he decided to be the chill teacher and assigned zero homework. But Sienna, she looked totally devastated. Who actually enjoys homework? This was a glitch in the matrix. It was the first time in history a student complained about not getting work, ever since a tiny mistake forced him to tutor the young master. His teaching era had been a straight-up nightmare, but now dark clouds parted for a literal ray of sunshine. Lady Sienna, the angel of knowledge. You have a teacher moved to tears by her hustle culture energy, and a student obsessed with his witty, fun lectures. The chemistry between them, honestly, it was wholesome overload. Name your price, miss. What assignment do you crave? Whatever you give me, I'll crush it. Michael walked in on this nerdfest and froze. He legitimately wondered if they had lost their minds. Deborah just smirked, claiming they were high on academic validation. However, Michael realized this was the first time he'd seen Sienna smile with that much genuine joy. Cut to lunch, though. Her battery died. She was nodding off into her food, and Michael couldn't help but roast her. Wake up, finish eating, let's go. The phrase "go out" hit her like a double shot of espresso. Instant reboot. Seeing her eyes snap open, he suggested hitting the shopping district. In her past life at the orphanage, the director kept them on total lockdown. Even at the mansion, Nate only took her out a handful of times during holidays. Seeing that mischievous glint in her eyes now, Michael felt like saying yes was a defeat, but he couldn't resist. Just look at that face. For a split second, a jagged memory surfaced in Michael's mind. The image of that girl lying cold and still flashed before him. Shaking it off, he whisked her away. This was the first time in 2 lifetimes she actually got to visit the commercial zone, just for the vibes. The market was buzzing and her heart soared. Michael played tour guide with zero chill. The crowd froze seeing the Nocte carriage. Heads bowed and whispers flew as Michael helped Sienna step down like royalty. The gossip mill went wild. Was this the rumored adopted daughter? For Sienna, it was sensory overload in the best way. Curiosity peaked at everything. Michael shadowed her, making sure she taste-tested every snack and drink in sight. Not bad, right? Just walking around hits different, she agreed. It was a rare moment of pure peace. Suddenly, a pair of crimson leather shoes in a window snatched her soul. Michael tracked her gaze and immediately went into rich kid flex mode. We're buying them. He ordered the clerk to bring them out, and before she could process, she was in the chair. Servants swarmed to help her slip them on. She looked up to see Michael and the butler giving enthusiastic thumbs-ups, a bit extra. She only glanced at them for a second. Shyly, she tested the fit. Oh my God, the clerk gasped. It's like Cinderella, made specifically for you. Michael slammed the payment down instantly. She tried to say no, but his energy was unmatched. Just take them. I really want to spoil you. Next stop, the toy store. While everyone cooed over plushies, she zeroed in on a model house. The exterior was basic, but the interior design, absolute perfection. That was what a home should feel like. To her, the orphanage and the Nocte mansion were just buildings. They weren't homes. Staring at the mini-house, a deep longing hit her. Maybe one day she'd have a sanctuary. Just like that. Suddenly, Isaros popped into existence. He zoomed straight into the toy house, checking the vibes. I love it. This crib matches my supreme elegance perfectly. Seeing the spirit satisfied, Michael paid up immediately. Another swipe. Sienna had to ask, do spirits even need real estate? Hearing him say he just wanted to own it, Sienna paused, stunned. Wait, he gets a house just for the flex, while I'm out here dreaming of a place to belong. Isaros clapped his hands, beckoning her inside the toy. Before she could blink, a massive vacuum force yanked her inside. Welcome to my humble abode. She stared wide-eyed at the red-haired stranger standing there. You are Isaros. Quick on the uptake, aren't we? She looked around. It was a life-sized replica of the model. But this was Isaros's magic. He'd taken the toy's blueprint and manifested a literal pocket dimension, creating a legit home. Sienna asked why the sudden purchase. Didn't you destroy my last place? I need a new pad. She shot back silently. He broke that necklace himself. Isaros just smirked, teasing, well, if you hadn't run away without permission. How exactly did that gem shatter? Sienna is still in fight mode, but Isaros cuts the chatter. It's time to get serious. Listen, you're a daughter of purification. You haven't even unlocked your domain yet, but you've been scrubbing this mansion's aura just by existing. Sienna freezes. He tells her a purifier with her raw stats cleans the air naturally like breathing. No wonder she's been dozing off since stepping foot in the Nocte estate. Her body's been working overtime on autopilot. Turns out that constant drowsiness was just her battery draining from unconscious purification. But the toxic vibes in this mansion have been piling up for years. Her current power level just isn't enough to scrub it all clean. That blackout she had, that was a system crash. Her body physically couldn't handle the load. She asks Isaros if she should just bail. Not that simple, he counters. This place is already your turf. You were born for this. When Sienna denies it, he looks genuinely confused, claiming her soul is wired to the Nocte mansion like she's lived and died here 1,000 times. Sienna murmurs, wait, are you worried about me? Isaros zooms in, closing the distance. Obviously, you're the only master I've picked in 2,000 years. Just didn't expect you to be such a total noob. I can't have my clumsy little master dying from magical burnout. We've got work to do. He presses her hand to his chest. We're linked, Sienna. I see what you see. But you're still buffering. Remember, I only level up if you level up. Right now, your main quest is finding me a new crib, specifically a pure energy crystal. The second he stops talking, Sienna's vision starts to blur, fade to black. She's out cold. Next morning, the maids roll in for the wake-up call. One look under the sheets and the maid's eyes pop out of her head. Bam! A blood-curdling scream rips through the entire mansion. Sienna jolts awake, groggy from the noise. Something feels off. Why are her arms so stubby? Deborah storms in to hush the maid, but turns into a statue the second she sees the bed. Sienna has completely shrunk. She's staring up with massive doe eyes, totally confused. Oh, my God, the cuteness overload is lethal. Deborah snaps out of it and checks her vitals. Physically, she's fine. No pain. Time to call the Duke and the doc. Sienna facepalms with a tiny hand, sighing. My bad. This is probably on me. Esaros's voice pipes up. A shy little flame pops out, explaining that possessing her body after the gem shattered caused a bit of a glitch, resulting in this regression. Sienna is fuming. She's ready to snuff out this annoying little flame right now. Isaros hovers over her head, panic mode. Just get me a new vessel and you'll grow back. Hurry. Radric is staring at mini Sienna, his brain completely buffering. He needs answers. The doctor runs a scan, confirming she's healthy. But with all the chaos recently, plus signing a contract with a sacred relic, her body's magical balance went haywire, hence the toddler form. The doc tells them to chill. Sienna should bounce back to normal in about 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Sienna's crushed. She starts ranting to Radric, totally unaware that her angry pout is the cutest thing ever. Every move she makes now sends the maids into a squealing frenzy. I mean, look at her. She looks like a 3-year-old. Even her voice is a high-pitched squeak. Radric's hand twitches, fighting the urge to squish those soft marshmallow cheeks. Sienna explains this is all Isaros's fault. Then it hits her the new house Isaros needs. Essence gems. These things are the batteries for magic artifacts and spell casting. Since supply is low, the price tag is astronomical. But Sienna remembers the mine the Countess handed over as compensation. That place is loaded with essence gems. She pitches the idea to Radric. He nods, asking to discuss this, somewhere private. She wobbles off the bed, her clumsy landing, sending the maids into cardiac arrest from the cuteness. Radric strides ahead, legs for days. Sienna is sprinting behind him, trying to keep up. The long dress is a total hazard, leaving her breathless. The butler finally clears his throat, signaling Radric to look behind him. Duke, my bad. Go on, I'll catch up, she wheezes. He sees her struggling and stops. She thinks he's annoyed. He turns arms, reaching out to scoop her up, but Deborah swoops in out of nowhere. Allow me, your grace. No worries, I've got the little miss. She snatches Sienna up. Radric stands there feeling incredibly awkward. He stiffly retracts his hand, turns around, and walks away. Sienna watches him go, totally missing the vibe. Why did the Duke's retreating silhouette scream lonely? Was being shrunk down to a toddler messing with my vision, or what? The butler let out a heavy sigh. As a dad of 2 himself, he couldn't wrap his head around it. How was the Duke still so clueless about connecting with kids? Seriously, zero parenting instincts. Anyway, after Sienna broke down the deets on Isaros's request, Radric snapped his fingers for a bag. He dropped it and boom, it was overflowing with essence gems. Sienna's jaw hit the floor. A single coin-sized gem could cop a luxury pad downtown. We're talking generational wealth in one bag. Rhetoric kept it cool. Look, you got the mind shares, but the actual gems won't land in your lap overnight. So raid my stash for now. When you fuse a name to a gem, it transforms into a soul stone. And a name is basically just a weapon flex in a soul stone, meaning Esseros's new crib requires two things: the gem and a vessel, a weapon. Sienna stared at the blinding loot. Can I just grab one for now? Radoric's expression darkened. Excuse me, Sienna, blinked confused. Then he dropped the ultimate sugar daddy move, declaring the entire bag was hers. She let out a breath, trying to be modest. I really don't need this much bling. Don't bet on it. Better to be over-prepared. Sienna was shook. This guy wasn't just generous. He was on another level. The Nocta bloodline didn't play. As founding heroes and one of the Empire's big three guardian families, their old money ran deep. We're talking set-for-life wealth for the next 10 generations easy. Radoric then dropped an invite to the family vault once she wasn't pint-sized anymore, telling her to pick any weapon she wanted for the gems. Her gut reaction was to say no thanks, but then she paused. She'd been grinding day and night purifying the Nocte mansion, so she decided to secure the bag guilt-free. Plus, if she ever wanted to go solo later, she'd need the cash flow. When she didn't push back, Radoric noticed a vibe shift. Usually she walked around with a cloud over her head. Was it the toddler transformation? Either way, the wall between them seemed to be crumbling. Time flew and the weekend rolled up, bringing Asir back from the military academy. Even Radoric raised an eyebrow, his son coming home. 3 weeks straight sus, but everyone knew the real reason. A servant helpfully tipped him off that Sienna was likely hitting the books in the study. Asir froze in his tracks. He let out a fake cough, trying to mask the awkwardness bubbling up. Was he nervous? Hard to tell, but he made a beeline for Sienna. He reached the study door, psyching himself up. Then a memory hit him, the withered rose he spotted under the desk before. A sharp pang pierced his chest. Did she really leave his gift to rot on the floor like trash? He stepped inside, empty. A maid nearby mentioned Sienna had just headed to her room, but Asir's eyes locked onto a fresh bouquet by the window. The maid chimed in. Master Seth sent those to celebrate her awakening. She keeps them perfectly preserved. The contrast stung like salt in a wound. That night, Asir spiraled into a fever dream. He was frantically tearing apart a desk. Where is it? I have to find it. I left it right here. Where the hell did it go? He was hunting for the amulet, Sienna's gift. He tore the room apart, but it was gone. Then images of Sienna flashed, her smile blazing, like the sun followed by her cold, lifeless body. The agony was unbearable, like his soul had been ripped out. Asir gasped, jolting awake from the nightmare. He was a mess, tears streaming down his face before he could stop them. Worst dream ever. What was that crushing heartbreak? Meanwhile, Sienna was staring at the mirror. She'd been pint-sized for days, but it still felt weird. Deborah, however, was absolutely dying of cuteness overload. Sienna looked illegally adorable. Drowning in the young master's old baby clothes, Deborah couldn't resist. She reached out, desperate to scoop Sienna up. Sienna was speechless. It was like every maid in the house saw her as a literal baby now. Everywhere she went, someone was trying to pick her up. It all started because she face-planted in front of Michael yesterday. Just remembering his face made her want to die. Her speech was slurred, and her cheeks were chubby dumplings. The second Michael saw her, he burst out laughing. She got so salty she spun around to storm off, but tripped over her own tiny feet and ate dirt in front of everyone. Talk about a cringe moment. But honestly, her tumble was so adorable, it melted everyone's hearts. Michael comforted her between chuckles, telling her to dry those tears and hyping her up as the cutest, best-behaved baby ever. She was instantly shook. Later at the dinner table, Sienna struggled to control her baby lisp, while Michael flashed a thumbs up, praising her for being a total angel again today. Asir, on the other hand, completely caught off guard. I mean, this was his first time seeing Sienna in her mini form. She tried to say hi to Asir, but accidentally called him Teal instead. Seeing Michael laugh until he cried made her want to smack him for the first time. Luckily, Radoric stepped in to shut Michael down and got everyone eating. A bit later, Michael whispered to Sienna, signaling her to check out the butler's kicks. Those shoes were absolutely ridiculous. Turns out the last time, they went shopping right after buying Sienna those leather red shoes. Michael snagged a pair of hilarious ones too, claiming they were for the butler. She never expected the usually stoic butler to actually rock them. The contrast was too much and she burst into giggles. Seeing that sweet, happy smile left Radoric and Asir totally stunned. Michael actually managed to crack Sienna up. Asir was dying to know how on earth he pulled it off, while Michael played it cool, claiming it was a trade secret he couldn't spill. Radoric swallowed his curiosity, eyeing Michael, hoping for a clue. Michael just shot his dad a look that said, "This is between me and Sienna." Asir was losing his mind with jealousy, but had nowhere to vent, so he took it out on the steak in front of him. The aggressive clanking of silverware startled even Sienna. This was young Master Asir, usually so posh and elegant, Meanwhile, Raderick accidentally knocked over his glass, spilling wine all over himself. Only Michael came out on top, covering his face to hide a snicker. Sienna had no clue what was going on. But whatever. The main mission was focusing on the food. After the meal, Raderick planned to throw a party in 1 week to officially announce her identity to the public. But Sienna was still low-key worried. Once it went public, Lorena would find out too, right? Even though in this timeline, she wasn't around. Her toxic words kept echoing in Sienna's mind. Sienna, you don't deserve to have any of this. In her past life, she lived entirely under Lorena's mental manipulation. Just a few sweet words from her had destroyed her entire existence. Looking back now, she felt incredibly embarrassed. In this life, she refused to trust anyone ever again. 1 week later, the party went down exactly as planned. But her body still hadn't snapped back to normal. Just thinking about showing up in front of everyone, looking like this stressed her out. People would definitely judge her, right? Seeing her anxious face. The maids hyped her up, whipping out support gear they'd crafted with their own hands. Miss, don't worry. Your cuteness can conquer literally anything. Sienna felt totally flattered. If anyone bugs you, let the Duke handle them. Young Master Michael will definitely make anyone who messes with you regret being born. And young Master Asir will show them what true terror looks like. Inside the swanky ballroom, guests were chatting and dancing casually. This was a totally different vibe from the stiff gathering Sienna had pictured. Deborah told her the Duke poured a ton of effort into her debut. But she couldn't feel happy about it at all, because she really wasn't used to crowded places. Just then, Raderick showed up looking sharp. He was instantly stunned by Sienna, who was all dolled up. You look absolutely adorable. Just as the words were about to slip out, he forced himself to pivot. Your dress looks very nice today. The butler grinned silently. Deborah tried to break the awkward tension. Raderick actually blushed, which never happens. He dropped to one knee, getting ready to carry her into the hall. Sienna dutifully hopped into his arms. Everything was set. Duke Raderick and Miss Sienna making their entrance. The guests stared at Raderick and the child in his arms. Everyone was raving that Sienna was, exactly as the rumors described, to become the master of those rings at such a young age. Truly exceptional. But Sienna was a nervous wreck. Suddenly, Michael stepped up to welcome her. Their interaction sparked whispers among the crowd again. Isn't young Michael usually super harsh? How are they so close? Right then, Asir also reached his hand out to Sienna, helping her into her chair. The actions of all three men proved to everyone just how major Sienna's position was in the Nacht family. Raderick formally introduced Sienna to the room as the adopted daughter of the Nacht family and the chosen one. With the sacred relic Isaros finally revealing its owner, the entire guest list was absolutely shook. Everyone was busy showering Raderick with praise. The Nocta mansion was getting all the hype, but honestly, Sienna looked like she wanted to crawl out of her skin amidst the chaos. She wasn't buying the fake smiles. She knew exactly what was hiding behind those compliments, insults, shade, and pure mockery. You could practically hear their thoughts. A mere orphan claiming that throne. Does she have zero shame? Michael snapped her out of her daze, whisking her away with a mysterious grin. When they arrived, Sienna's jaw literally dropped. A massive mountain of loot was stacked right in front of her. Michael told her these were all congratulations presents from the thirsty crowd. According to him, this was just the standard treatment for a Nocta daughter. He nudged her, telling her to pick one to unbox. Feeling a major case of imposter syndrome, she reached for the smallest box. Michael, however, subscribed to the go big or go home philosophy. He scooped Sienna up and plopped her right into the arms of a gigantic life-size teddy bear. Oh my god, Sienna, it's a perfect match. I wonder which genius sent a gift with such immaculate taste. Seeing him hype himself up like that, she didn't need a detective to figure out the sender. Suddenly, he grabbed her hand. Congrats, Your Highness, Princess of Nocte. That little move made a group of girls nearby turn green with envy. While Michael was beaming like a proud dad, Sienna's gut was screaming that major drama was incoming. Cut to the next day in the mansion garden, Sienna was eyeing the cliques of people feeling totally out of place. Deborah had practically forced her to host because Raderick and the guys were stuck in some boring meeting. As a Nocta, she had to show her face, but it was like she was invisible. No one gave her the time of day. She was really wishing Isaros could talk to her right now. Suddenly, a fan landed right at her feet with a clack. Oops, dropped my fan, Miss Sienna. Be a dear and fetch that for me. It was Florence, of course. The same girl who had been giving her the stink eye yesterday. She was marching over with aggressive energy, clearly looking for a fight. Miss Sienna, I asked for help. You hear me and just stand there. The disrespect is wild. Sienna remembered her past life. Lorena always swung first when people got jealous. Sienna decided it was time to clap back with her own power. She didn't say a word, just shot a cold glare. The fan on the ground suddenly twitched. Within a split second, it launched into the air and zoomed straight at Florence. The girl couldn't dodge, slipped, and hit the dirt hard. Sienna put on her best innocent face. Picked it up for you. You're welcome. Florence was fuming. She couldn't believe an orphan just owned her like that. Suddenly, the drama queens swarmed in. They immediately started gaslighting Sienna, calling her arrogant and out of control. You barely stepped foot into the Nocte family, and you're already acting like a tyrant, bullying the children of loyal families. The Duke is going to be so disappointed when he hears about this. Sienna stayed silent. She didn't expect the adults to be just as toxic and petty as the kids. Faced with their lies and slander, she didn't bother defending herself. Explaining to people committed to misunderstanding you is useless. No one was coming to save her. What is going on here? A voice cut through the noise like a knife. A white-haired man stepped onto the scene. Sienna recognized him instantly. He was an old ally of Lorena's. In her past life, Viscount Gester was Lorena's ride or die. She couldn't figure out why he was stepping up for her in this timeline. Viscount Gester cleared the crowd with just a few sharp words. Sienna thanked him for the assist. Gester scratched his head, acting all sheepish. No need for formalities. If you ever have trouble like this again, just come find me. He flashed a warm smile and enthusiastically invited Sienna to walk with him. Her survival instincts were blaring red alarms. This guy radiated dark energy. The next second, the nice guy mask slipped off completely. He cornered Sienna with a dagger just as the sky opened up and rain started pouring. Gester shoved a door open. He pushed her inside with a violent thud. Sienna stumbled and hit the floor, her essence gems spilling everywhere. Panic set in as Saros had been silent all day. Gester yanked her up in a rage. He dragged her into a tiny room. The moment the door opened, the smell of rotting flesh hit her like a truck. He wore a sick, twisted smile. He tossed her into the center of the room. Sienna noticed a magic circle drawn in blood on the floor. Major horror movie vibes. Gester caressed a coffin, whispering like a maniac, "My angel, I'm bringing you back." The whole scene was absolutely terrifying. Then the villain monologue. He wanted to drain Sienna's blood to feed his dead daughter and transfer the magic to revive her. Sienna was stunned by his delusion. Transferring magic. It's not that simple, buddy. If drinking blood was the answer, Lorena wouldn't have struggled for years before attacking her. Gester pressed the dagger closer, cooperate or die. One look at those psychotic eyes told her everything playing nice wasn't going to save her life tonight. It was fight or die time. Sienna went full feral and sank her teeth straight into his hand. Hester shrieked, shoving her back. "You little brat, you actually bit me. That's it. I'm draining every last drop of your blood right now." Isaro Sienna screamed at the top of her lungs. Boom. Blazing fire erupted instantly, swallowing Hester whole. While he writhed and groaned in agony, Sienna's body shifted back to its true form in a heartbeat. She was back to normal. "Run now," Isaros warned. The dark energy was eating Hester alive, warping him into a straight-up magic beast. Isaros didn't have a physical form to hold him back, and the exit was totally blocked. Sienna's eyes darted to the window behind her. It was the only way out. As Hester stomped closer, looking like a nightmare, her mind raced for an escape route. "Sienna," a desperate familiar shout broke through. She looked down. A seer was there, bow drawn, mounted on his horse in the distance. Whoosh! An arrow wrapped in blue flames sliced through the air, barely grazing Sienna before slamming into the mutated Hester. But the miasma was too strong. The wound regenerated instantly. Sienna realized she had to bail like yesterday. She checked the window again. A seer was positioned right under the ledge. "Sienna, jump. I've got you, I promise." Zero hesitation. She launched herself off the sill. She landed solid in his arms. "Are you hurt?" a seer asked, panic in his voice. "I'm okay," she gasped. Suddenly, boom! An explosion rocked the floor above. It was Hester. The miasma had fully consumed him. He was a monster now. Dozens of mages rushed in, blasting spells, but it was like hitting a brick wall. Esseros explained the beast's dark energy is going critical. Regular magic won't scratch him. Only contract power can end this. A seer's invisible Thanatos, and Sienna's purifying Isaros, it was the ultimate combo. Their powers fused, transforming into a blinding beam of light that surged straight at the beast. The monster disintegrated into nothingness. Victory. Asir and Sienna finally let out a breath they'd been holding. But on the ride back to the mansion, Sienna's mind was replaying everything. Hester, Lorena's biggest supporter, was dead before Lorena even stepped foot in the Nocte mansion. Just a coincidence. The moon cradle Asaros. Everything that belonged to Lorena in the past life was hers now. Even the gem mine was under her name. She wanted to change fate, sure, but this was a total rewrite beyond her wildest imagination. So, what actually went down in Rhetoric's office? Devon dropped the investigation report. Hester's mutation was off the charts. If Sienna hadn't unleashed that purifying fire, they would have been looking at a massive casualty event trying to take that beast down. Rhetoric needed answers on that dark energy spike. Devon found the remains of Hester's daughter at the scene, preserved by magic. Rhetoric theorized that Hester got infected while trying to resurrect her, but the guy had zero magic skills, which meant someone else cast that spell. It didn't add up for Rhetoric. Sienna claimed Hester wanted to sacrifice her for the resurrection. Was that just the madness talking? Or was someone actually targeting Sienna's abilities? Rhetoric didn't take chances. He ordered the scene sealed, and the messenger crows sent out. They needed to dig deep. Since the kidnapping attempt, Isaros had been a nervous wreck to make sure she didn't get taken out next time. He proposed special survival training pass. If I die, just go find a new owner, she joked. Big mistake. Bonk. He headbutted her right on the forehead. I chose you out of thousands. How many times do I have to say it? You treat your life like it's cheap. Completely ignoring how I feel. Seeing him so genuinely hurt, Sienna realized she'd crossed a line. Isaros made it clear it was her or no one. That's when a memory from her past life flashed back. She had asked Isaros if there was a way to break a contract. Excuse me, he had exploded with rage. You still want to get rid of me? She scrambled to clear the air, realizing her excuses wouldn't cut it. Then she dropped the nuclear bombshell she'd actually rewinded time from the future. Isaros pieced the puzzle together instantly, but even Sienna was stumped on the how and why of this glitch in the Matrix. In her past life, she never bonded with Isaros. Worse, he was straight up annihilated. The spirit paused, processing the intel. He grilled her. Was she 100% certain he was destroyed, or had someone pulled a switch in bait heist? Sienna realized that theory actually tracked. But why would Lorena stoop that low? The girl was already a one-in-a-million prodigy, basically magic royalty. She was born with S-tier healing hacks. Legend says she dragged the dying emperor back from the brink for a whole extra year. That fame made her untouchable. So was this sabotage? Did she snatch me just to block you? Sienna's head was spinning. If the timeline was rigged back then, could she still claim him now? But hearing Isaros' next words, declare that he'd pick her in every single timeline, yeah, that made her heart skip a literal beat. Then Isaros flipped into coach mode. Running away isn't the move if you want a peaceful life. If you don't want Lorena to wreck you again, you need to level up. He gently tapped her hand to drive the point home. Don't stress, you're not solo in this server anymore. Our pact is forever. I've got your back. Your ops are my ops. We ride together. The raw sincerity of his promise left her totally floored. Those words hit different, thawing out the coldest parts of her trauma. All the garbage she'd swallowed, all the silent suffering, just spilled over as hot tears. Lorena had inflicted maximum damage on her soul. Sienna had sworn off trusting anyone, planning to keep the world at arm's length. But deep down, she was starving for real connection. I'm always on your team. That single sentence buffed Sienna's resolve to infinity. It's decided. I'm grinding until I'm the top healer. I'm done playing the weak, scared victim NPC. One lifetime of that was plenty. No clue how this storyline plays out, but I'm climbing to the peak, and I'm etching your name right there next to mine. The Isaros who chooses me, no matter the odds. Seeing her glow up with newfound confidence actually stunned Raderick. The vibe shift was undeniable. He stammered, checking if she was physically okay. Thanks to you, I'm solid. She didn't dodge his gaze, flashing a dazzling smile instead. And big thanks to Lord Asir for the clutch, save even if I was terrified. Raderick needed the tea. What exactly went down? The old Sienna would have downplayed the drama. The new Sienna, she was ready to weaponize every tear for the win. She reenacted the scene, voice trembling perfectly. The Viscount, he just pulled a knife on me, like out of nowhere. Raderick looked horrified. I was panic-stricken looking for a lifeline, but nobody stepped up, just because of some petty drama with the other girls. She spilled every toxic detail of the bullying. Raderick was seeing red. He had no clue she'd been disrespected like that. And Mrs. Deborah, the chaperone I sent to protect you. Sienna let out a soft, aggrieved sigh. Oh, she was too busy networking and clout chasing. She didn't even look my way. Even with a knife at my throat. Total ghosting. Raderick's heart shattered. They dared defy him and endanger her. Unforgivable. He immediately dropped the hammer, revoke Viscount Gester and Mrs. Deborah's titles. Full exile for their families. Seize all assets. Total cancellation. Anyone who looked at Sienna wrong that day was permanently blacklisted from the Nate estate. Raderick was the apex predator here. His word was law. Just like that, those families became social pariahs, radioactive to the rest of the nobility. The gossip mill went wild. Everyone realized Sienna wasn't just some guest. She was VIP #1 in Raderick's book. They also started hyping up the Duke's ability to spot hidden gems. Who knew the orphan girl was a high-tier contractor and a healer? Suddenly, everyone wanted to adopt orphans, hoping for the same lottery win. Meanwhile, Esseros officially kicked off boot camp. Sienna had been grinding through 6 mana-gathering drills. Time for the reveal. She closed her eyes, sensing the mana wrapping around her core, flowing, pulsing, until it pooled into her palm. A brilliant magic domain condensed and materialized. This was the genesis. Her first interaction with the arcane. A prototype of her own vast universe, the first world she'd ever built from scratch. Esseros was vibing with it. Worthy of being my chosen one. With my 200 IQ coaching, you're gonna go far, kid. But then he ruined the moment by nagging Sienna to find him a vessel. As soon as possible, she pointed out she'd already given him the essence gems. Isaros looked at the low-poly rough stones in disgust. When Sienna told him to just be grateful, he looked like he'd been struck by lightning. The little guy was absolutely crushed. He floated over to the closet in the tiny house, ready to throw a pity party for one. Sienna giggled, rushing to smooth things over. Essaros, my bad, I was totally messing with you earlier. Radarich, wanting to comfort Sienna and fix the vibe, asked if there was anything her heart desired. She shot the treasure vault. She didn't expect Radarich to be such a total Chad about it. He told her to raid the place, take whatever she wanted. Hearing that, Isaros popped his little head out, instant mood swing, treasure vault. Now, let's go. The vault was absolutely stacked. We're talking priceless loot and heirlooms from the Golden Age, just dripping with history. There were even ancient relics sitting there, mysterious junk nobody understood. Michael tried to hype Sienna up, saying, "They cleared out the cursed stuff already, so it's not that dangerous." Sienna blinked. Wait, not especially. So there's still dangerous stuff in there. Bingo. Maybe even some terrifying magic beasts. Radarich shut Michael down before he could keep trolling, watching their banter. Radarich wondered when these two became besties. Michael caught the vibe and puffed up his chest, feeling pretty smug. After all, he was basically Sienna's ride or die in this house. Sienna zoned out for a sec. If her past life hadn't been full of drama and misunderstandings, Michael would have been this sweet back then too. Anyway, the vault's magic had a VIP list. Only direct Noct descendants, or people who ate the pomegranate, could enter. Plus, there was a catch. It guided you to exactly what you needed, but it was a solo mission, one person at a time. Radarich told her to chill. The vault would never hurt anyone the Noct family claimed as their own. Sienna steeled herself, promising to come back in one piece. With that, she stepped into the gaping darkness alone. In that void of pitch-black nothingness, the only light came from glowing footprints appearing beneath her feet, leading the way like a GPS. Isaros told her to stay on guard, but her gut said it was safe. Suddenly, Sienna froze. She was standing right in front of Asir's bedroom door. What the heck was going on? She walked into a treasure vault, so how did she glitch into his hallway? She called out for Isaros' dead silence. Then, she saw the glowing tracks leading straight into the room. Figuring Asir was away at the military academy, she worked up the nerve to step inside. But there he was, Asir, standing right there. Sensing someone, he whipped his head around, looking at her with this agonizing mix of pain and total disbelief. He couldn't trust his own eyes, like he was stuck in a fever dream. Sienna was shook. Asir was supposed to be miles away at the academy, right now. And honestly, his vibe was off. A familiar sinking feeling hit her and she realized this was the Asir from her past life. Seeing him inch closer, she spun around and bolted. She had to get out of there, but Asir was hot on her heels. He screamed with heartbreaking desperation, "Sienna, wait," but no matter how much he begged, she didn't slow down. Panicking, she kept telling herself this wasn't real, just some twisted illusion, cooked up by the treasure vault. Because the Duke said this place gave visitors exactly what they truly wanted. Sienna refused to believe it. Deep down, was she actually craving Asir chasing after her like this? She crashed through a door. As she slammed it shut, his pleading voice still echoed Sienna. "Please don't leave me." She slumped against the wood, gasping for air. That's when Isaros' voice cut through. She snapped back to reality in a completely strange room. Isaros told her that the second they walked in, she just blacked out, like she got hit with a heavy illusion spell. Hearing that calmed her nerves a bit. So the whole chase scene was just a nightmare. Suddenly, something rolled right to her feet. It was this super vintage-looking pipe. Isaros circled it, checking it out from every angle. "Sienna, I'm claiming this as my crib. It's got fire resistance and buff magic. Plus, look at that gem slot, perfect for me to crash in. It's literally made for me." Isaros was in love at first sight, but Sienna wasn't feeling it. Mostly because walking around with a pipe isn't exactly the vibe for a young lady. "I don't care, I want it. I'll literally die without it," Isaros whined. "Didn't you say I could get whatever I wanted? Besides, the vault picks the perfect item for you. So this pipe is the one." Sienna sighed and gave in. She took out the essence gem and slotted it into the mouthpiece. A bright flash blinded them for a sec, and the gem locked in, perfectly fusing with the pipe. Time for a test drive. Sienna pumped in a tiny bit of magic, and boom, fierce flames erupted. Even cooler, the smoke it puffed out purified the air around them. Just then, another item clattered to her feet. A signet ring. Isaros immediately vibed with its energy. "Take it," the spirit commanded. Sienna exited the treasure vault, only to find Raider, Kim, and Michael staring at her. Jaws dropped. They couldn't believe she bounced in under 10 minutes. 10 minutes? It felt like hours to Sienna. She figured the magic inside must have warped the time flow. They were totally baffled when she revealed her loot. A pipe. She quickly clarified, "Hey, Isaros wanted this, not me." Michael sighed. Weird taste. Isaros, floating unseen, instantly got salty. The audacity of this brat. "Sienna, tell him off." But Sienna just giggled with Michael, ignoring the furious spirit. Fast forward a few days. Class barely ended, and Sienna was already bombarding the teacher with questions. Michael was impressed by her grind. All day, every day. Is studying really that fun? He asked. Absolutely, she beamed. Knowledge is power. She realized that in her past life, she didn't just lose her magic. She lost her freedom and joy. But now, building her own mana domain, she was obsessed. Watching that glowing world expand bit by bit, pure serotonin, her personal galaxy shimmered with starlight, recharging her soul every single day. Cut to the orphanage visit. The second Sienna hopped off the carriage, she tackled the teacher with a massive hug. Lisa stood there in shock. Sienna looked like a completely different person. And look who tagged along, Michael. How are you holding up? Lisa asked anxiously. Great. Everyone's super nice, Sienna chirped. For now, anyway. Before Lorena shows up, she thought. Then she noticed the upgrades around the place. No more drafty windows. Everything was actually clean. Since Lisa took over as director, life here had leveled up. But for Michael, he was looking around in horror. To him, this improvement was a nightmare. Cracked glass, walls rotting from age, moldy stairs that groaned like they were about to snap under his boots. Even the VIP treatment was tragic. Grain tea and rock-hard black cookies, made of mystery ingredients. The servants at the Nocte mansion wouldn't feed this to a dog. If this is better, how bad was it before? Lisa shuddered, remembering the old director. That guy was so cheap. He'd boil onion skins for soup and call it dinner. Zero seasoning, just hot water and trash. It tasted like despair. At least now the kids weren't starving like they used to. Sometimes Lisa baked these cookies. Back then, they were a luxury item Sienna could only dream of, reserved strictly for the director and guests. Michael stared at the cookie he was struggling to swallow. To think this brick of flour was once her dream meal, seeing her smile about it broke his heart. He couldn't even process the poverty she survived. Lisa looked down, guilt written all over her face. If you were still here, she whispered, I'd make sure you never suffered like that again. I'd be happy here with you, Sienna said softly. Suddenly, Michael snapped. Sienna, you're a Nocte now. You are never coming back to this dump. Sienna flinched at his outburst. Lisa quickly apologized to the young lord. I spoke out of turn. Of course, Sienna belongs at the mansion. Michael realized he'd lost his cool. He thought he knew how commoners lived. He'd toured the lower districts before. But this was a different level of survival. Knowing Sienna grew up in something even worse twisted his gut. Lisa tried to lighten the mood. We're getting donations now, she said. Ever since Sienna's debut, noble families were obsessed with adopting orphans. Sure, some were chasing clout, but hey, the money helped. After soaking in the harsh reality of her past, it was time to bounce. Sienna hugged Lisa goodbye, looking genuinely peaceful. Michael had never seen her this relaxed. Back at the mansion, she always had her guard up, acting like a temporary guest, like she was terrified she'd be returned to the store the moment a better orphan showed up. He couldn't grasp why she missed this place, but as the carriage rolled away, Sienna just smiled, happy for the reunion. Michael's anxiety was hitting the roof. Every time Sienna mentioned the orphanage, he pictured her walking away and ghosting the mansion forever. Desperate to stop it, he snapped, Sienna, you're done going there. Sienna stared at him like he was losing it. The guy was acting totally erratic. He literally forced his way onto this trip, rudely interrupted her heartfelt chat with Miss Lisa, and now he thinks he calls the shots? Suddenly, he's forbidding her? Please, the Duke himself signed off on these visits, and that's the only approval that matters. I secured permission the second I walked into the Noct estate, she fired back. Michael lost his cool. So, was this your master plan all along? To run back there? Obviously, Sienna replied calmly. It's my home. They were on two completely different wavelengths, totally missing each other's point. The carriage ride turned into a high-stakes argument. Michael couldn't process it. Why the obsession? Did she despise the Noct mansion that much? Do you hate us? He pressed. You're a daughter of House Noct now, remember? Sienna cut him a sharp look. I'm fully aware of that. She whipped her head toward the window, completely icing him out. Michael knew when to quit, so he clamped his mouth shut. Fast forward a few days. Lisa was busy tending the crops when she looked up to see Sienna back again. But instead of excitement, Lisa looked genuinely worried. Is it really safe for you to keep popping up here? She asked nervously. Sienna just flashed a mischievous smile. Why? Am I bothering you? Lisa gasped. No way. Trust me, if you keep making appearances, those high society snobs will drop major donations just to suck up to you. Sienna cracked up at her friend's hustle mindset. Then Lisa dropped the bomb. Did Michael come with you? Sienna completely froze. Truth was, they'd been giving each other the silent treatment ever since that massive fight. Back in her first life, she would have been walking on eggshells, ready to quit the orphanage cold turkey just to keep him from losing his temper. But now, zero cares given. It was all gonna burn down anyway. Either Lorena would show up, or he'd eventually flip out over her vibe with a seer. That fragile bond was doomed regardless. Keeping her poker face, she fed Lisa a casual excuse. Michael's totally slammed with work, so he couldn't make it. Chaos erupted instantly. A panicked voice screamed, "Director!" That problem child from room 6 just broke into the back room again. Lisa, totally swamped, waved Sienna off. Go wait in the director's office. I'll deal with this. Sienna nodded and slipped into the room, alone. The door was already cracked open. As she stepped inside, her sharp eyes zeroed in on something odd, a stray piece of fabric sticking out from under the wardrobe. She clocked it immediately. The kid was hiding right there. With a knowing smirk, she spoke to the wooden doors. You know, if that were me, I wouldn't leave a single thread visible. But hey, using the backroom incident as a decoy to clear the area, that was actually a genius move. The closet door swung open. Cowering inside the shadows was a tiny boy with raven black hair and electric blue eyes, trembling in the dark. He eyes her like she's a threat, demanding to know who she is. Sienna hits him with a truth bomb. I'm your predecessor. Even though the kid has his walls up high, Sienna knows exactly how to handle a tough cookie like him. She reaches out, cool and collected. You planning on camping out here forever? Meanwhile, Lisa is tearing the back room apart and finding absolutely zero trace of him. But when she drags herself back, totally wiped out, her jaw hits the floor. The kid is out cold, snoozing peacefully right on Sienna's lap. It is Lua, the very runaway she was hunting for. Lisa watches the scene, feeling a mix of relief and defeat. She explains he is a transfer from another spot, and the kid has been fighting this place tooth and nail, refusing to let anyone in. She never in a million years thought he would vibe with Sienna like this. Sienna waves off the worry, telling Lisa to chill. She has already had a little heart-to-heart with the boy, and he is going to be on his best behavior from now on. But when it is time to bounce, the drama kicks in. Lua latches onto Sienna, literally begging her not to ghost him. It does not matter how hard. Lisa tries to pry him off. He is stuck like glue. That is when Sienna leans in and whispers a little secret right into his ear. Lua snaps his head up, eyes wide. You ain't lying to me, right? Okay then, we got a deal. Sienna flashes a warm smile. For sure, but you gotta keep your end of the bargain too. As she heads out, a baffled Lisa asks what magic spell she cast on Lua, because that kid has never been this obedient. I just told him I'd come visit again. Wait, so what was the deal? Before Sienna can even spill the tea, Lua pops up right behind Lisa. He actually bows like a total gentleman and starts apologizing, confessing to every single prank he pulled. See, that was the trade-off. Sienna only promised to return if he came clean and owned his mess. That is the only ticket to seeing her again. Later, back at the Nocta mansion, Sienna stares out the window, deep in her feels. She has been here a month already. Checking the timeline from her past life, the countdown is on. 4 months until Lorena makes her grand entrance. Even though she has flipped the script on a lot of things, Sienna can't shake this bad vibe. She is terrified that all her hard grinding will mean absolutely nothing once Lorena shows up. She originally thought she could just level up her situation, but the drama with Michael proved her wrong. It was a wake-up call, relying on people's good vibes, totally temporary and kinda useless. She needs solid wins, real, tangible power moves to survive the storm that is Lorena. Her target? The Emperor's mysterious illness. In the previous timeline, the guy got hit with a sudden sickness and was knocking on death's door. It was Lorena who stepped in, extending his life for 1 year, snatching the title of Healing Angel. Even after the Emperor eventually passed, Lorena was hailed as the ultimate hero. She stood shoulder to shoulder with the Crown Prince at the national funeral. Sienna naively convinced herself that everything was finally going to be okay. Asaros was practically cheerleading her to take the shot. If anyone could save the Emperor, it was her. After all, healing and purification are two sides of the same coin. She had a real fighting chance. But right then, while Lorena was soaking up public clout and royal favor, Sienna's gut instinct started screaming. The Emperor was the picture of health, so how did he suddenly tank so hard? And how is it that Lorena just conveniently unlocked the perfect cure at the exact right second? The timing was way too sus. Was this entire setup scripted from the start? Isaros narrowed his eyes, shifting into strategist mode. First, we verify the illness. If this is Lorena's scheme, she's going to make a move against Sienna fast, because she needs a massive win to rival the actual master of the name. She's desperate for leverage. Meanwhile, Raderick got hit with some breaking news. The legendary long-lost healing magic had returned to the Empire, and the wielder was none other than Lady Lorena from the Count Milan family. Lorena, a healing mage? The rumor mill went wild, instantly pitting her against Sienna. The Count's family claimed they only delayed the announcement out of respect for Sienna, the named master. Yeah, right. Since when do high and mighty nobles care about an orphan's feelings? Hearing this, Asaros' competitive streak flared up. He demanded Sienna start speedrunning healing magic training immediately. No way were they losing to that brat. But dual-wielding magic types hadn't been seen in ages. Sienna realized grinding a new skill was a waste. Better to max out her purification stats and level up as a healer her own way. She remembered a critical detail. Lorena's healing had a serious cooldown, one person at a time. In her past life, Lorena hoarded that power, only casting it when absolutely necessary. This made the nobles desperate, constantly harassing her. To fix their chronic issues, Lorena would put on a sad act, claiming that saving the emperor drained her dry. She'd cry and walk away, leaving the angry mob to turn on Sienna instead. They'd corner her, demanding she force Lorena to help them. Back then, Sienna felt bad for Lorena, so she shielded her from their insane demands. But that just made the nobles snap at Sienna. You orphan! Who gave you the right to say no? You think you're special just because you hang around Lady Lorena? They humiliated her, even getting physical. If she unlocked that same power now, that mob would just come for her again. Not worth it. She told Essaros she didn't need the glory. She was happy enough just serving him. That hit Essaros right in the feels. Forget healing magic. Who cares? You're my master. While he got emotional, Sienna strategized. If the Emperor's sickness is a trap, the smart play is to fix it before he actually goes down. But how does she get access to the throne? While she stressed over the logistics, Essaros looked at her like she was crazy. Before she could hatch a plan to infiltrate the palace, Roderick dropped a truth bomb. The Emperor had actually been requesting her presence for ages. They declined the last 2 invites, but they couldn't dodge a third one. Sienna suddenly remembered. Oh yeah, she's the named master. Getting summoned by the Emperor is literally part of the job description. She felt like such an idiot for overthinking it. She spent all that time plotting when the door was wide open. She was ready to go right now, but Roderick looked grim. He told her not to force herself. You don't have to go if you don't want to. But Sienna wasn't missing this chance. She insisted that as a subject, seeing His Majesty was a total honor. Roderick's expression just got darker. She assumed he was worried she'd embarrass the family. She quickly promised to brush up on her etiquette and not tarnish the Nocte reputation. He looked even more depressed that she missed his point. If you insist, I'll reply. Isaros was cackling in the background, enjoying the show. My master is so adorably dense. The Duke was trying to protect her, and she was completely clueless. Meanwhile, in the Imperial Garden, the Emperor was admiring the view when Duke Eulis arrived. The Emperor waved a hand dismissively. Say your piece and get out. Eulis held out Roderick's reply, but the Emperor didn't even bother opening the envelope. He just stared ahead. He tossed it aside. Duke Eulis wisely backed off, knowing better than to stick around for the Emperor's reaction. Once the room was clear, the Emperor snatched the letter back up. As his eyes scanned the page, he couldn't hide the hype burning in his gaze. Finally, he was actually going to meet that girl. Just like that. It was class time. Sienna froze at the classroom door, hesitation kicking in. Ever since her blowout with Michael, they'd been ghosting each other, but she wasn't about to bail on her studies just to dodge some awkward tension. You gonna stand there all day? Speak of the devil, Michael rolled up right behind her. His face was a total mask, but his eyes were glued to her feet. Sienna followed his gaze and realized, oops, she was rocking the red leather shoes he'd gifted her. The maid picked the fit, sure, but wearing his present while they were beefing? It felt messy. Guess you really like those kicks, he noted. Sienna scrambled to explain it was just a random style choice for the day. Michael didn't push it, just walked into the room with her. He hoped she'd eventually figure out who actually had her back. During the lecture, he kept side-eyeing her, making her sweat. Was he over it, or still salty? She couldn't tell. Anyway, today's lesson was heavy. Malignant chi. Basically, dark energy that festers in the heart, fueled by human malice and sin. Viscount Gester and Isabel, textbook examples of this corruption. Since humans naturally have some darkness inside, it's super hard to spot the malignant chi infection before the symptoms actually pop up. But Sienna? She had clearly seen that black aura, swirling in Gester and Isabel's eyes. When she spilled the tea to Asaros back then, he explained that since he's built different, literally not human, he can sense the evil. And once Sienna became his master, that ability synced up with her too. It wasn't just a cool trick, it boosted her career as a healer. Isaros warned her to keep it on the low though. An OP ability like that is useful, but it puts a target on your back. Seth then broke down the 4 tiers of magic beasts. The ones that lose their minds and go full feral mode, that's the lowest tier. Extraordinary level, like Baron Gester. Then you got the ones that can actually team up and recognize each other. That's tier 3, rare level. Tier 2 is the scarce level. These nightmares can use dark magic and even mimic humans to an extent. And for the monsters that completely overpower normal humans, that's the boss tier. Epic level. Sienna and Michael were definitely feeling the pressure. Before dismissing class, Seth dropped some homework. Research major incidents involving each beast level. As they packed up, Michael asked Sienna what her move was for the day. She kept it real. I'm heading to the orphanage. Michael just told her to stay safe on the road and suggested they grind out the homework together later. His chill vibe threw her off. Wait, is the beef officially squashed? Sienna rolled up to the orphanage, flanked by 2 guards Roderick had assigned for protection. Inside, Lisa was wrangling a group of kids. The second they spotted Sienna, they swarmed her, screaming, "Room 6, teacher!" It was total chaos. Lisa actually had to drag the kids away for bath time just to calm things down. Even the guards read the room and stepped back to give them some space. Sienna worried she was causing too much drama, but Lisa, she was beaming. This whole spectacle proved the Duke actually cared about Sienna, and thanks to her frequent visits, noble donations had skyrocketed. Sure, most of the donors were just chasing clout and acting out of self-interest, but the cash was real, and it was seriously upgrading the orphanage, the teachers, and kids were super grateful to Sienna. Ever since Lisa dropped that Room 6 teacher line, the nickname went viral among the kids. Even Lula was saying it. Sienna was so gentle and playful that she was basically a celebrity there. Suddenly, Lou popped out of nowhere, nearly giving Lisa a heart attack. Turns out another teacher needed Lisa's help. Once she took off, Lou stuck to Sienna like glue. He whipped out the book Sienna had lent him, and they started breaking down the plot. Sienna was shook. This kid could read way better than she expected. He was definitely built different from the other orphans. "Have you been a good boy for Miss Lisa?" she asked. "I tried my hardest to listen," Lou replied. "But it's hard when she talks to me like a baby, saying cringe stuff like, 'Time to wash your little teefies.'" She probably should have played the obedient little girl role a bit longer. But the second Sienna stepped out of that orphanage, her internal alarm bells started ringing. The forest was dead silent. Suspiciously silent. No wind howling, no birds chirping, just an eerie, total stillness. And the carriage that was supposed to be waiting, gone. Poof. She realized they'd walked straight into a magic circle, a trap set by someone powerful. But weirdly, she didn't sense any killing intent, which meant whoever set this up probably wasn't trying to hurt them. Suddenly, crunch footsteps echoed. Her guards instantly went into combat mode, circling Sienna to protect her. But in a literal blink of an eye, both guards vanished into thin air. Then a door materialized right in front of her. Isaros whispered in her ear to chill out. There was no danger. Sienna felt it too, a massive, welcoming aura waving her in. She stepped through the door and boom, paradise. Everything was vibrant green. Vines and plants actually pulled back to clear a path for her like a red carpet. In the center of the patio stood an old man. "You're right on time, kid." She clocked his identity immediately. His Majesty, the Emperor. "Don't stress," he smiled. "I'm just a random grandpa passing through." Seeing the Emperor acting so chill, she dropped her guard. "I heard a sweet, kind-hearted girl became the new naming master," he said. "I just had to come see you for myself." Right then, rustling sounds came from the bushes. It was Raderick, looking totally done with everything. He sighed. "Your Majesty, stop trolling us. Like this," he glared. "Aren't you the one hiding this kid, so I can't visit?" The Emperor had hijacked the path to his garden. "Right, Uncle?" "Wait, Uncle?" Sienna's mind blew. The Emperor was the Duke's uncle. Isaros cut in, telling her to focus on the Emperor. She snapped out of it, channeling mana into her eyes for a scan. Suddenly, she spotted a massive glitch. Inside the Emperor, Sienna froze in horror. His heart was completely saturated with pitch-black malice. The dark energy inside Isabel and Gester, that was child's play compared to this. This level of corruption was enough to mutate humans into literal magic beasts. If that ticking time bomb inside the Emperor went off, he was 100% dead. And if it was just him dying, that would be tragic, but manageable. But if that much dark energy detonated in a magic hub like this, total apocalypse. Hordes of rare-level monster beasts would spawn instantly, triggering a war right on their doorstep. The kingdom would face a catastrophic disaster. This kind of darkness didn't happen naturally. Someone engineered this. Sienna's thoughts went straight to Lorena. What kind of twisted ritual did she use to poison the Emperor like this? Since her rebirth, watching the Grand Duke change, Sienna had this tiny hope that maybe Lorena might be different this time around too. But this proved it. Lorena hadn't changed a bit. She was still the same villain. She didn't just scam Sienna. She was treating the Emperor's life like a pawn. She was conning the entire empire. Rage bubbled up in Sienna's chest. Not this time. She was absolutely going to shut down Lorena's conspiracy. She figured the Emperor had to know. The royals were the most powerful healer family in the world, and this garden was his turf. He was definitely burning serious power to use purification magic, trying to keep that darkness contained. Only a top-tier healer could hold back a storm that big. Lorena's healing would probably only buy him another year of life, tops. Sienna hatched a plan. She and Isaros would tag-team this and actually cure the Emperor. But doing that meant she wasn't just a bystander anymore. She'd be declaring open war on Lorena. The Emperor broke the tension, inviting Sienna for desserts. And yeah, the royal suites were definitely way fancier than anything at the Nocta Mansion. In her past life, she only ever saw these when Lorena showed off the thank you gifts the royals sent her. Lorena used to flex those gifts, sharing them with other nobles just to prove her VIP status. Now that she thought about it, it was all a PR move to show off her special treatment. Sienna took a bite of cake, but honestly, it didn't blow her mind. People were just hyping it up because of the royal brand name. Her good girl act, however, totally worked on the emperor. He couldn't figure out how a grump like Roderick snagged such an adorable kid. He asked Sienna to take a walk with him in the garden. Sienna cheered internally. This was the perfect chance to get some intel from the emperor. She hesitated, glancing at the duke, wondering if it was okay to leave him alone. But Roderick gave her the green light. Go. He's one of the best healers in the game. You'll learn a ton. Walking down the forest path, the emperor asked if his surprise entrance scared her. Hope you get it. Healers always have crowds around them. He explained that since healers scrub away magical filth, people naturally feel refreshed just standing near them. Finally, it clicked. That's why everyone was always so gentle around her. With her? Guess I'm a healer too, just like your majesty. The air froze instantly. His gaze, warm a second ago, sharpened into a deadly interrogation the moment I dropped my cover. Sienna stiffened, realizing her mistake. In this timeline, she hadn't even met the emperor yet. How could she slip up like that? Then, a brain blast logic saved her. The only person who could chat up the duke with that level of chill had to be the big boss himself. Her quick wit killed the suspicion. As they ventured deeper, the lush forest vanished, replaced by a dead, barren wasteland choked with weeds. Welcome to the emperor's personal playground. It was a physical manifestation of his mind. The emperor stared at the decay. This place is a wreck. Because you're sick, aren't you? There's a black mass clinging to your heart. That stopped him cold. Kid, you can actually see that? Roderick snapped to attention. She explained to the emperor that syncing with Asaros gave her X-ray vision for dark energy. Now it made sense. Why she could spot the curse rotting him from the inside. Facing Roderick's silent question, the emperor dropped the act. Kid, I'm on borrowed time. Roderick went pale. He demanded answers. Now, the emperor confessed he'd blacked out during a meeting recently. Despite his age, he was usually an ox. So this sudden collapse triggered massive panic. The crown prince? That snake told him to just announce his death date already. It blindsided him. But the weirdest part? When he woke up, he felt totally fine. Even the royal doc gave him a clean bill of health. He thought he was in the clear, until he sensed the massive concentration of malice building up inside him. Except for the prince. He kept his mouth shut. Roderick looked ready to cry, but the old man just chuckled. Hey, bring a decent gift to my funeral, all right? Roderick wasn't having it, and they started bickering. Sienna cut through the noise. Is the malice making you sick? The emperor blinked, remembering she was still there. He whispered, keep this between us. Don't let a soul know. But Sienna didn't back down. I can purge that energy. Comfort washed over him for a second, but he knew the score this was too big for one person. Sienna had never seen a curse this dense. If that malice detonated near a mana ley line, boom, monster invasion. That's why he quarantined himself here to contain the blast radius. The emperor's jaw dropped. She grasped the tactical situation perfectly. Exactly. Staying here protects everyone else. Then he whirled on Roderick to roast him. You just call her smart? Weak. When you introduce a talent like this, you say prodigy. You say genius. If people underestimate her because of your lowballing, that's on you. Roderick was roasted into silence. Point taken. From now on, he'd hype Sienna as a once-in-a-generation genius to anyone who would listen. Isaros popped out to flex too. Obviously. Look who picked her. Sienna just stood there, awkwardly side-eyeing the fan club. The emperor crouched down, asking to see her divine weapon. Asaros shifted to its true form. The emperor squinted. He'd heard it could shapeshift. It was unique. Hang on. Is that a smoking pipe? Please tell me you didn't pick that design. Sienna frantically shook her head. Blame the spirit. The emperor sighed in relief. Good. Her fashion sense wasn't broken. He grinned. An honor to meet the legendary Asaros. These artifacts were cosmic mysteries, and somehow, this kid snagged the MVP of them all. Roderick pushed hard, urging the emperor to let them help. Sienna and Isaros were his best shot at survival, but the emperor hesitated. He couldn't say yes. There's another candidate, he confessed. Lady Lorena, a newly awakened healer, had already staked her claim on the cure.